Welcome back to whichever season this is of Critical Misses to be determined. We're here for Dune, the movie, Part 1, 2021's.
Yes.
I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpear.
Hi.
It's
Yeah.
been,
Mm.
production-wise, it's been a little bit of time since we finished the previous episode here, so we're
Yes.
I will be catching up a little bit with the Dune universe here, largely
Mm-hmm.
through this movie. Um,
Yeah. How the sausages made moment is, hey, we were going to do this to release with Dune, and then it got rescheduled, and
mhm,
then we didn't know when it was going to get rescheduled to until we were already in the process of making a different season.
right,
So,
production.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So we're gonna be watching. Shockingly, this came out 2.5
Yeah.
years ago here.
How?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pretty
It
wild.
feels like it was last year. I'm not going to lie. It definitely feels like it was a last year moment.
Yeah, we just had a
I am
moment of like, oh,
also
2021, right? Yes, okay.
I'm also appropriately dressed in my Dune swag today.
Hmm.
For the record, I have my sandworm cap on,
Yep.
uh, and I have Boston's favorite T-shirt on.
The tread rhythmically. Or don't
Yes,
tread
the don't
rhythmically.
don't
Yeah.
tread rhythmically
Yep.
sandworm T-shirt, which
It's very
is the
good.
best double take I've ever gotten in public. Still to
Hmm.
this day.
Yeah. First take with an eye roll. Second take of like, oh,
Mhm.
aha. Yeah. All right. So
So
we last episode we
we
read probably about 2/3 of the first Dune book, uh,
correct.
up until the point where he got his brand new name. He killed a
Mhm.
man. And
Hey
we kind of,
Boston, hey Boston.
yeah, yeah.
What was the man's name?
Bob, Jeff, Bob Jeffries. There it is. Hey,
Jamis.
Jeff.
Jamis.
Okay, wasn't Duncan Idaho, that's for sure. I remember that name.
Yes.
Um,
So I mean, we kind of spoiled this in the part one, but like, roughly where this movie is going to end because I specifically picked the book
right,
to end in the appropriate place for this movie's watch through. So roughly what it's going to cover.
correct.
Is there anything that you remember from the book that you're expecting to not be covered in the movie?
I think the only thing we talked
Keyword
about in the
remember.
last episode was that the dinner scene was either
Yes.
shot and not released or not shot at all, which is a
Shot and not
pretty
released.
okay. That's a pretty big bummer. Like, I get it. That's a pretty long
Mhm.
scene. That's a bummer because that's a cool. I'd love to see the tension of that scene
Mhm.
on screen. Um, but
Yes.
I kind of get I get why they didn't film that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I'm
Or
still
release it. Sorry.
disappointed by it.
Yeah. We'll wait for the ultimate director's cut with two movies mushed together, and it's about 16 hours long. Yeah. Um,
Yes.
what else are
There is
we?
actually behind the scenes photos of Rebecca Ferguson, who is in this movie
Oh, I
as
like
Lady
her.
Jessica,
Okay.
um, in the dress from the dinner scene.
Oh, nice.
Like there's photos of her in that outfit, which is
Okay.
just like, "Ugh, it was right there."
We were so close. The only other stuff I could see is them kind of maybe trimming the fat of certain scenes. I'm not sure what else you cut out, but I'm sure a lot of it is all kind of not cleaned up, but trimmed around the edges a little bit. Um,
So you do you think they'll do a deep dive into the Butletarian jihad at this pom pom in this movie?
Probably not. I'm assuming there's a lot of kind of fish out of water intros to the world in the beginning, as Paul himself is kind of confused. So are you as the viewer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more thinking about like there's the scene where Paul goes with the Duke Atreides in the ornithopter, and they're gonna go rescue the people from potential sandworm attack when they're mining the spice.
Yes.
I could see a lot of that getting trimmed, where it's a lot of like they're whispering about kinds. They're there's a lot. I think there's a lot there that's like you can make Paul and the Duke seem pretty cool and seem important without kind of going through a lot
doing
of that
deep
stuff.
dives.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cast. I already spoiled. Lady Jessica is Rebecca Ferguson.
Right.
Who's in the movie, Boston? What do we know
Timothy
about who's in this
Timothy
movie?
Chalamet, Zendaya.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Who do they play?
Timothy Chalamet is Paul. Zendaya is
Which I will give them credit. They cast someone who looks like he could be 15 playing a 15-year-old.
That's right. That's right. He's so
There's a reason
small
Ren
and
from
pasty.
yeah, there's a reason Ren from Remap referred to the Lies of Pi character as Twinkathy Chalamet because it so appropriately fits.
So good. Zendaya is Shawnee. Oh, I know his face. I think Oscar Isaac is in it as well.
Correct.
And
Who
the
does he
Duke?
play? He is Duke Leto Atreides, yes.
That's who you want to play that role anyway. Yeah. Dave Bautista is in there, I remember.
Okay.
As
correct. Who does he play?
Duncan Idaho.
Nope.
I don't know who. Oh, is he the guy that's always playing that like space guitar?
No.
Okay. It made a very big impression.
He's not
on me.
Gary Halleck, no.
Okay.
He is not Gary Halleck.
Okay.
Gary Halleck is a warrior poet. You think Dave Bautista is a warrior poet? One might say he is large and intimidating, a little beastly, one might say.
Oh, okay.
He plays Raban, the Harkonnen beast Raban.
Right. I want to say Jason Momoa was in this as well. Is he Duncan Idaho?
Jason Momoa is Duncan Idaho, yes.
Perfect. All right. That's good casting for Duncan Idaho.
It really is.
Yeah. I want to see Momoa in more stuff. I feel like one of the Skarsgårds is in this. Stellan, Kieran,
one of the Skarsgårds is in this, indeed.
Alexander, one of them.
It's Stellan. You got him first.
Okay.
Who does he play?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
The only other casting thing I know they have a woman playing Kynes in this movie, which I think on paper is a really cool idea. I like the idea of playing around with the characters a little bit, like sticking to the book
Correct.
as closely as you can, but like you should allow yourself some allowances to make it a cool thing. Like make it doesn't need to be a one-to-one translation to the screen.
Paul being a male is very important to the world. Without flipping the world on its head, Paul being a male is very important to that.
Right.
Liet Kynes' gender is irrelevant to that character. So therefore, changing it to a woman, I'm fine with. I don't really care. And of course, you had the traditional people come out of the woodwork complaining about it, but at the end of the day, their gender is irrelevant.
Right.
They have one connection which might be associated with gender, which I actually think this makes it more important, if I'm completely honest.
Okay.
Which you may or may not have got to in the book. I don't think you did get to in the book yet. I think that will literally start the very next section of the book. You'll find out what that connection is.
Gotcha. Okay. Other than that, I don't know. I feel like when the cast...
You did good. Like, I'm not going to lie, you did good. There is 2 huge names that you are missing, but I can understand why you would miss them.
I feel like when the movie was being announced, they were like, all right, we got... we've got Chalamet and Zendaya here, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure. And then they just kept announcing one name after another. That was like, okay, man, yeah, you got a whole lot of people. Same thing with 2, where it's like, hey, do you want to know who the Emperor is? It's this dude, and it's like, yeah, perfect. Yep, exactly.
Do you know who that? I'm assuming you know who that is.
Yeah, It's like you cast exactly the perfect person for that role. So
Hearing who they cast as Princess Irulan is a amazing casting choice in my opinion.
I don't know if I know
Um,
who that is.
I'm not going to say anything then
Okay,
because
we'll get there
so
eventually.
here is the fun thing is you know of these characters already, like you know the Emperor, you know Princess Irulan, you know, what do I
Yeah,
forgot his
because Princess
name.
Irulan is largely, at least in the first part of the book that we've read, is the one
Opens every
who's,
chapter.
yeah, she's writing her diary entries or like historical entries in the beginning of every chapter. So it's
Hmm.
it's kind of cool that you already know a little bit about some of these other characters that haven't shown up on the page yet.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Fade Routher, you already know who that is as well, I believe.
Mm.
You were introduced to him. It was a very small scene in the first book. It's when it's when the Harkonnens are talking about the trap. Fade Routher is in that
Oh,
sequence
okay.
where
Yep.
which is literally one of the opening scenes of the book. Like Fade Routher
Right.
is in that scene. You get a deeper dive into his character very soon in the books.
Mm.
You'll learn more about the type of person he is. We will say,
Right.
but that so ironically enough, that's how I figured out where the first movie was going to end. Like I made a prediction. I might have talked about this in the book episode. Brian made a prediction where the book will end, and I guessed it to the second
Okay.
because of who'd been announced cast wise and who hadn't been announced,
Sure.
and what the trailer showed. And I was like, well, okay, so it's going to go up to here. It's going to stop right here because we haven't met this character, this character, this character, and this character, who are all very important after this
Right,
moment.
in like literally the next chapter. So it's like, that's a pretty safe bet.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Not that I'm a giant dork or anything, and
Well, I mean, that's
my
the
branding
benefit of
is
having
definitely strong.
read this book, countless times.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you must have by now, and I know this is technically part two content,
Hmm.
but we need to talk now because it hasn't come out yet about the popcorn buckets for the Dune Part Two.
Yeah. If you're listening to this sometime in the future,
Around the time it comes out or afterwards.
yeah, if you're listening to this many years in the future, please, whatever search engine is out there, please just search for Dune Part Two movie popcorn bucket, and you'll see the
It's a
horrors contained
travesty.
within.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I get it. It's a good tie into the
It's
movie, but
funny.
I don't
It's
want
great,
to.
but
I
it's
don't want to
horrifying.
stick my hand into the gaping maw of a sandworm just to get some popcorn.
Hmm. Yeah.
Also, the pain
It's
box was
rough.
literally right there.
Yeah, man. What's the pain box's name, Boston?
Bob. No, I don't remember. I remember
The
the.
Gom Jabbar.
I thought that was the poison. Okay,
The Gom Jabbar is the needle.
gotcha.
The needle is and that's the Gom Jabbar test is what involves the pain box.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I'm really excited to watch this movie. I bought like some Turbo Ultra 4K Blu-ray of this so I can get the best looking version I can. And I wish I had it here so I could show it on camera or at least read which version I got. Moon has it there in his hand. That's the exact one I got. It has the whole cast on the front. Um,
Yep.
um,
The UHD edition on with a UHD Blu-ray and a digital version all at the same time, and an hour of bonus features. This is still sealed. I haven't cracked this open because
nice.
I was saving this
That's
for
right.
this moment.
I'm really excited to watch this. I think my biggest surprise as someone who hadn't yet read the books coming out of, well, people coming out of the first movie was like, yeah, it's good. And
Hmm.
that was the most surprising thing to me because people weren't really like licking their chops for this thing to fail like people do for a bunch of stuff, but there's this.
I think there was a tepid hope, one might say, that this might
Yeah,
be
and like an
the
incredulity of like, yeah, someone else is gonna try Dune. Okay, it's your
uh-huh.
funeral, man. Go crazy. And
The one thing we were kind of rescued by a little bit here was the director. Do you know who directed the movie, Mr. Boston?
yeah, Dennis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Okay.
It's a French name.
He
I understand.
directed
I'm probably better at that than you.
Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, a whole bunch of other very successful
Arrival.
movies. Oh, Rival.
Um,
Yep.
and he has a very distinct visual style, one might say. Like,
Yes.
say what you want about Blade Runner 2049. I think it's a genuinely fantastic movie, but it has a look to it. And
Yeah,
there's one thing you definitely need when you're filming a Dune movie is you need to have a look.
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, so I think that was something that kind of perked my ears up a little bit, saying like, okay, yeah, maybe they, we'll see what happens when the second part comes out, but seems like they
Uh-huh.
kind of nailed the seemingly impossible to shoot movie so far.
Yes. Also, for the record, he is a giant Dune dork. Like he
That's
is like
perfect.
me level of Dune fan, like if
Right,
not more so, because he's
right.
been thinking about this from a cinematography aspect since he was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I've been thinking about it in a lore way since I was a
Right.
child.
It's like Henry
Um,
Cavill in 40K. It's like I've been dreaming of this
yes,
my
it's a
whole
match
life.
made in heaven.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
So, what do you remember about the release of this movie, Boston?
I don't think anything.
Particularly the time frame of its release. Because
Um,
this is a middle of the pandemic release, right when movie
mm,
theaters were opening again.
it's true.
So it had like 2 weeks in the theaters before it got dumped on HBO Max.
Right,
Um,
right.
and still, from what I recall, made a boatload of money and immediately got the second part approved.
Mm. Yeah, because I think even as the first part was nearing release, everybody was sort of like, "Yeah, we'd love to like shoot the second one, but we're still
Oh,
waiting
so
here a little bit."
so that was the funny part is that the advertising, the marketing for the whole thing, it was just Dune. And then
Yep.
when you sat down to watch it, it said Dune Part 1. It didn't say
Right.
Part 1 on the posters.
Uh
It
huh.
did say Part 1 in the actual theater. And it was
Final
like,
Fantasy
oh
VII
no.
remake, part one. It's like, oh,
Uh-huh.
gotcha. Mm-hmm. Not the whole thing. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. Any final thoughts here before we head into our UHD 4K HDR Blu-rays? More TLAs.
I'm curious because I know there's a lot of stuff in here that I was sitting in the theater. When I watched this in the theater, I was like, I get that reference. I get that reference. I was
Right.
like a constant
Foreshadowing.
string of Steve Rogers gif of I
Mm-hmm.
understood that reference. Like
Right.
constantly. Um and they did cut some stuff out that I'm a little sad they cut out, but I completely understand why. Like
Sure.
there's a lot Dune is big. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Like we talked about it in the book episode, I'm sure. But like if you start reading Dune and you can make it through those first like 5 to 10 like chapters, then you're set. You're
Right.
100% set. If you bow out within that time frame, I get it. I
Right.
100%
It's a
understand why.
it's a dense book, man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And they take off a lot of the density in this. Like they
Mm.
strip away a fair amount of things. Like I was joking, but obviously they're not going to really talk about the Butlerian Jihad and how, what effect that had on society.
Right.
They're not going to talk about the reign of Emperor Shaddam IV and how the house. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Um, so there are some things they cut out. One thing did disappoint me they cut out, but again, I understand why they did.
Mm.
But I'm curious if that is something that you share too, if you can even remember that far back at this point in time.
Gotcha. Right.
Um, but no, I'm curious. I'm looking forward to unwrapping that UHD. I want to see the hour of extra bonus features. I want to
That's
know
right.
if there's a director's commentary in there. I want to know if
Oh
there's a
man, I
cast
hope.
commentary.
I love
Give me the Lord of the
commentaries.
Rings special, please. Like they're
If
so
only. We
good.
don't get enough. I don't want to get on my soapbox. We don't get enough commentaries anymore
No,
because of the
nowhere
streaming.
near enough.
Because of streaming, and it sucks. It's a real bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only service that seems to do it well is the worst one, which is Disney Plus.
That's right. God, they're so terrible. Ugh. It's so bad. Oh, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
on that note, let's go watch the film.
Sounds good.
Boy Moon, that was a hell of a
Uh-huh.
movie, huh?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
On the record straight away, just like I did first half, I got my Dune crap on.
Yep. Fear's the Mind Killer saying shirt there.
Yep. The litany
Yep.
against fear. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Sorry, I'm an Adam Freeland fan. That's where I get it from. Yeah, boy, let's talk about a 2.5 hour movie that is just filled to the brim with as much possible stuff as they could put in there in the long runtime they had.
And they're still missing stuff. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, you asked the question in the first part about are there any scenes that you think would kind of be on the chopping block. The one I had forgotten to mention is the one that I kind of like and kind of don't in the book, where Jessica and Paul run across that like secret garden that
Yes, the
has
secret room at the building. Yes.
Yeah, that has the hidden message in it. And I thought, oh, for sure that will be cut from the movie, and it definitely was. But you can only put so much stuff in 2.5 hours. And
I like
certainly...
they cut out the entire thing about using Jessica as a smokescreen, believing that she was the mole.
Right.
That entire thing is gone. No drunk Duncan Idaho. No Gurney Halleck with the... Was it Gurney or was it Thufir? No, whichever. No, it was Thufir because it was a Mentat. Thufir confronting Jessica and having that whole scene where she reveals her level of power with him.
You can see them almost cutting, while you're watching the movie, cutting like half an hour at a time of like, okay, so he and Jessica aren't married, cut a half an hour. Oh, the Mentats, cut an hour. Oh, here, like it's just like snip, snip, snip.
That is a big thing for me, is the Mentats really bothered me that they didn't get really a mention. I mean, the nod is in there if you know.
Yeah.
Because you see both Thufir and Peter do the eyes rolling back in the head thing as they do their quick math. It also completely brushes aside the fact that Paul is also a Mentat, or becoming a Mentat.
Right.
Which is... It is what it is kind of thing.
Yeah, overall, I'm really happy with how they have presented the first part of the book that we've read so far in this movie, because I don't want to say the full book because we haven't read it, all of it, of course. Because as we talked about at the beginning, they had to make cuts. It's the famously unfilmable book. Like you have to make changes, you have to massage stuff, you have to trim the fat here and there. And I think they did a really good job of keeping enough stuff.
They towed the line just enough.
Because there's enough stuff in there. And it's kind of funny because I feel like they do a really good job at the beginning of the movie until you get to Arrakis of you not knowing enough in the same way that Paul does, that I feel like the book really got. Because if you're watching the movie and you haven't seen or read any Dune stuff before, you're like, yeah, man, sure, they're talking in a weird voice. We're going to sandworms? Look at this giant sandworm having a sun coming out of his mouth. What the hell's going on here? There's still that level of not really confusion, but just sort of like, sure, yep, she's a witch. Great, let's do that. And I think they captured that really well without getting too bogged down into it, I think.
Yes.
I there's so much.
There's a lot to talk about in this movie.
I really,
I do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say one thing I really like that they address early on is the Bene Gesserit and the voice. I really like that one
Yes.
of the first things in the movie is, oh, you want me to pass this water? You got to use the voice. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Like, if you hadn't seen any Dune stuff, it's like, oh, cool. Like, you're gonna do your like your dad voice and be like, give me.
Yes.
And I like how they portray the voice that it has. It's like multi-layered and reverb applied
And the
to it.
first time you even hear it, it's not even Paul's voice. Like that's the part I really like. It's
Yes.
actually the Reverend Mother. It's
Yeah.
her voice overlaid the top of it because he's not good enough at it yet. Which
Yep.
I really like that aspect of it.
And then when
Um,
you hear it for
this
real,
is
when
literally
she
the
gives it to him,
second scene in the movie as well.
right? And then when the Reverend Mother gives it to Paul later, you hear how much different and how crisp and commanding it is. Like
Mhm.
that's
And it skips the motion. Like it skips the whole process of him going from the door to in front of her, sitting down,
right because
as
he's
if
like
he's
on
had
his
this
knees
mental
immediately.
skip
Yep.
of like, wait, what the hell just happened kind of
And
situation.
that's like when you can see that anger of his. It's like, you dare use the voice against me? It's like, yeah, man, that was so good.
Mhm.
Um,
I
I
do like the fact that the movie opens with the Fremen point of view. It's like
yeah,
it's a really nice touch. The book doesn't do it. Nothing to do with Dune opens with the Fremen's point of view, and I like the fact that this movie immediately sets out the harshness of the life on Arrakis for the Fremen, like
right,
their whole deal of like, yeah, look, we're oppressed, we're hunted, we're killed, and now our hunters and our killers are leaving, but who's gonna replace them? And I like the fact that that's the question that introduces you to the House Atreides.
right.
Is here is the Harkonnens, they are monstrous, what are the Atreides like? And then you get introduced to the family, to the Atreides, to their system, their values, rather than just jumping in and talking about everything else.
Well, and I like that her last line in the intro is, "And who will our next oppressors be?" Like she's saying, like, "Hey, we're finally free of these terrible, terrible Harkonnens that have abused us for so long." But is the next thing way worse? And I really
Uh-huh.
like that the movie sets up very early on that the Atreides have done something and the Emperor is pissed. So
Yes.
very clearly, I'm sending them to Arrakis. If they live and they survive, great, sure, everybody wins. But if they don't, Arrakis sure is just a
What a
harsh,
shame.
terrible place. Who could have seen this coming?
Uh-huh.
Anyways, I really
To
like that.
quote the Baron later in the movie, Arrakis is Arrakis.
That's right. Well, and like I like that it's the Baron saying before he transforms into Long Harkonnen. I like that he says just like the Emperor is jealous. Like he is jealous about how the Atreides are doing.
Yeah, the
So
star of Atreides is rising, and the Emperor is a jealous man.
yeah,
Beautiful lines from a monstrous person.
it's so, and I think I like that they distill the politics of the beginning of that book down into just that scene. And
Like
it's
two
not,
scenes and it's done.
yeah, and it's not delivered from Leto Atreides. Like, it's not him
Uh-huh.
saying, like, oh, like he knows, and that's one of the interesting things about the book, is downplayed here a little bit in the movie, of the Duke Atreides just saying, like, I know, we've been doing really well. Emperor's really not crazy about it. We're walking into a trap. We're going to try and
We have like
escape.
one shot,
Yeah, and
one
like
chance,
we're
one
gonna try to
opportunity.
escape from the trap and use it to our benefit, but we
Hmm.
know all how all the players feel about us, and it's not good.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do. Mad props to the CGI, to whoever did this, but I like the cuts, and it does it a couple of times. I think the first one is right after the first voice scene. It's the holovids that Paul is watching to learn about
yep,
Arrakis.
hmm
They're so well presented. Like I love the way they look. I love the way they feel. I love the fact that it's like a British documentary show where it's
yep,
like a dude narrating over it, just like
yep.
it's like Blue
The
Planet except it's
wilds of
Orange Planet.
Arrakis. Yeah, it's really all of that stuff is really really well done. Like I like that the first couple of times you see Arrakis, it's blindingly bright until they kind of get used to it, and then it's a
Because
little bit
it's
less.
all in Paul's dreams as well. Is the first
Yeah,
time you see it. It's his dreams, and there's a so we might as well right now he dreams a lot of Chani, which
yeah,
is Zendaya.
yep.
She's not really in this movie a whole lot, and
No.
that's fine because Chani becomes a much more important character in the second half of the book, just like she will in the second movie.
Hmm.
She was very much pushed to the forefront of promotional stuff for this movie, and I'm fine with that. Whether she's in this movie a lot or not, I think it's like 11 minutes of screen time she has.
Hmm.
Whether she's in here a lot or not, it doesn't change the fact that she is a vital character to this story as a whole.
Right.
So you have to cast her early, and if you've cast her and she's doing scenes, you might as well have her in the promotional material. So who cares?
Well, and I think she does a lot of really great work at the end of the movie, because just like in the book, she's like, "Oh, this is supposed to be our savior. This baby, this baby kid. Like, what are you guys talking about? This can't possibly be it." But then a scene later when she's like, "Hey man, here's
The
this
climbing off the
knife."
rock scene. Oh no,
Well,
that scene. Yes.
the knife where she's like, "Here's a knife. Look, so the guy you're fighting, like, he's really good. You're not gonna win, but he's not gonna let you suffer. So like, you don't.
Yeah,
I know
and
you're nervous, but you don't really have to be."
it will be an honor to die with this in your hand because this is a knife made from the tooth of Shai Halud.
Yeah, like it's a really interesting.
She tries to give him a good death,
Hmm.
despite who he is, despite what he is. She's like, "Hey, the situation's crappy. Here, have an honorable death. Die
Right.
like a warrior."
Yeah. Let's talk about a
Um,
little bit more of the cast here as we kind of weave in and out of all this stuff here.
so that actually brings me perfectly to the next big scene that we'll jump a lot in this, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But the guild ship and the Royal Herald scene is super cool and
Yeah.
also super depressing.
Yeah.
Because you get the feeling that everybody involved knows exactly what is going on and nobody is saying what is actually happening.
Hmm.
They're all just like, "Yeah, it's done, dude. Good luck. Like, have
Good luck
fun."
on Arrakis. What the hell?
Yeah. This is
Like,
also where you get the how much will it cost? Will this have cost them through fear? And he does
yep.
the little eye roll and then tells them exactly how much it would cost.
I really like
Um,
the dude that plays Thufir. I think
yes,
he doesn't get a
he
lot
takes that
of.
wise old man thing really, really
Yeah,
well.
and he doesn't get a lot of screen time, which makes sense because like you just have to cut everywhere. But I think he does a really good job, especially later when he apologizes after the Hunter Seeker stuff. Um, like the Duke is just like, "No, man, like I need you right now." He goes, "Okay, cool, bye," and he just like scurries off.
Yeah,
Like
he's like,
there's
"You want
not.
to regain your honor? Go catch me some spies."
Yeah,
Which is, and I like it in the book that Paul is the one who talks Leto out of firing him,
yeah,
and then Leto talks Thufir out of being fired. But it's fine the fact that they completely skip that. Like it's
hmm,
Paul. There's a lot to cover, and like you said, they have to cut where they do.
yeah,
But we get pretty much the full cast -1 on display for the Atreides side on that Herald scene.
yeah.
And we get Duke Leto saying, "Smile, Gurney," and he says, "I am smiling," while not smiling at all. And oh hey, it's Josh Brolin.
It's Josh Brolin, man. Like I don't know. I don't know the last thing I have seen this dude in. I think.
Avengers.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Um, I I think he does an incredible job in this. Playing this character as just the like, I need to get you ready for this, and you're not ready, and I'm not sure you ever will be, and I'm kind
You
of.
don't know how serious this situation is. We'll get to it in a little bit, but the combat scene is done to
Yeah,
perfection, in my opinion, in this movie.
he's so good in this role, and I'm glad that it's the same way that Oscar Isaac is good as the Duke. Like they
Leto.
both, yeah, like they both nail that role, and they both carry themselves in the way that I think they should
You'd expect
in
them
those
to,
roles.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really like. So Leto is, to me, pretty different in the movie from the book.
I don't think he gets to show how charismatic he can be. Because we know, like, I know that Oscar Isaac can be a charismatic as hell actor. I
Yeah,
genuinely know that. I've seen him as Poe Dameron. He can
right,
charm the pants off of anybody. Um, I think he doesn't get to show that because of his limited screen time. He doesn't get to show the charming nature of the Atreides, like why
right.
they are so respected. And that's a failing in the movie's heart, but at the same time, he performs it with seriousness, with genuine class as a Duke would have, but also he when he has to be emotional, he delivers that emotion with punches that I think are really, really,
Yeah.
really felt.
Well, and one of my big problems in the book is I felt like Leto is too cutthroat. He's too like he can't not be the leader for a little bit to be uh Paul's dad or be a husband or whatever else he needs to be, the other
Uh-huh.
facets of his life. And I feel
You
like
get
one of
two scenes of that in this movie.
and
The
that
scene with Paul is
where like
is great.
where he's with
The
all
gravestone
the
scene.
gravestone, that's the scene when I was watching this movie I was like, okay, I think they get it. Like you're diverging from the work and that's fine, but I think you're doing it in the right ways. Like I think that scene for me was sort of like, all right, I think you're I'm not a Dune expert or anything, but I think you kind of get the spirit of the work and you're massaging that into this film, and I think that scene especially for
Yeah,
me was like, okay, I think you get it and you're using Oscar Isaac pretty perfectly.
yeah. I mean, in the book, he's kind of portrayed as a little bit of an absentee father.
Yeah,
Like Paul
100%.
doesn't see him a whole lot. And like the few scenes that you do get with Leto and Paul in the book, like he does show that he loves him and he shows that he cares and he shows that everything he does is for his family. But you never get the only time you get the really one on one scene with Paul is when he's like, "Hey, Paul, by the way, I have to pretend your mother is a traitor,
Right.
and I need you to do this for me." Like that's
Right.
the really only one on one scene they get where there's a lot of emotion involved.
That's
I
true.
think this is a great counterplay to that to have the conversation here on Caladan, which, by the way, Caladan beautifully represented.
It's really, especially as the kind of counterpoint to Arrakis, that this lush, beautiful, grown, green planet. I think it really hammers home in a way that maybe I didn't fully grasp in the book. Of just, yeah, Arrakis is deadly, but it's also the polar opposite of where the Atreides have lived and their home planet. It's not just, yeah, Arrakis is tough and it's going to kill you. It's the most polar opposite of everything you have known.
Yeah, it's again we haven't really talked about. I love the visuals in this movie. Like, there's a
It's
lot of
beautifully
long
shot.
shots with people not talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it uses those shots really well to set everything up. Like the shot of the herald of the emperor coming and
Yeah.
arriving, the long shots of Paul as he like walks around the beaches and
Yeah.
like looks on everything that's going on. I especially like the approach of the pilot, the very cocky pilot who
Mm-hmm.
we meet in a few moments,
Mm-hmm.
as he flies into this slot that's about 2 inches wider than the actual plane itself.
Right. Yeah, I actually that was one of the big notes I took away from. I didn't write a lot of notes from this movie because I was just watching it. But the use of those kind of quiet moments or the use of silence, I think, was especially interesting, especially because we don't get a lot of that in these kind of big budget movies. It's usually like, all right, here comes the licensed soundtrack, here comes the quips, now we're doing a training montage, yeah.
Uh-huh.
um and I It's such a stark contrast between what we usually get and then what we have here,
Yeah.
and I think it works so well for this movie.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned it to you either it was either in part one or off mic or off recording. But Hans Zimmer doing this score, I
Hmm.
didn't know he was capable of a score like this. Like this is for me, this isn't. I don't know how you felt, but for me, I adore this score. Like I adore
Yeah.
the sound. It's downright oppressive at times,
Yeah.
and it's meant to be. And then other times it's hopeful and everything else that goes along with this score. It's so good. Like the soundtrack in this movie is amazing. And like you said, they use the right moments to just cut everything out and just have
Yeah.
silence.
Yeah. I'm actually a I like about half of what Hans Zimmer has made. I especially this reminds me a lot of his Sherlock Holmes soundtracks, which I feel like don't get enough credit. But in the Sherlock Holmes movies, he basically kind of broke and sort of tore apart and manipulated and rebroke a piano that he really loved to record that soundtrack, and it has this kind of wonderful off kilter. Like it's never off key, but it's just sort of like, okay, that's interesting. And in this movie, he just created a bunch of new instruments to play for the soundtrack. It's like, yeah, when he
Yeah, I was going to mention
really
that.
like when he really gets invested in it, I think he really turns out stuff that's super cool and like brand new and interesting. I think some of the vocal stuff in here can be pretty interesting. I think especially the last shot where it's almost too much, the
Yep.
vocal performance, and then it cuts out right when it needs to. Sort of like, yeah, all right, I get it.
Like I said, I think it is super oppressive at times, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
designed to be like a lot of the stuff building up to the reveal of the Sardaukar, and then anytime they appear, it becomes a super oppressive like soundtrack mostly,
Yep.
and I like that because it goes in tune with what they are and what they represent.
Mm-hmm. And I have to give them a lot of credit because I think the natural choice would be, oh well, the Dune book is so Middle Eastern inspired. I'll just perform like a Middle Eastern inspired soundtrack. And that isn't really present, which I think is the right choice, because that's just like, oh, well, it's Arrakis, so here come the instruments. It's like, that's,
Yeah,
I think you do something that's more interesting. And I also have to give the movie credit that it really downplayed a lot of the Middle Eastern influences uh, in the book as well, which I thought was interesting.
yeah. I mean that all. I'm 50-50 on that because I like the fact that I don't I don't like Frank Herbert as a person. There are
Well, yeah.
certain opinions he had which are horrific. Obviously, we talked about the book itself has problems with the whole white man savior and eugenics kind of issue.
Exactly.
Um, I'm torn on this because I like the fact that they're making it unique to the universe, but also at the same time, I feel like it's devaluing some of that influence that he has taken
Mm,
from there's a lot of interstitial Muslim faith in behind what a lot of the Fremen believe. A lot of that is taken from two religions. It's I think I can't remember what they are. It's something Buddhism and a particular form of Muslim belief,
okay.
like blended into one is essentially what they are.
Interesting.
Which again I think it's cool, but at the same time I think it's not cool. Like and the movie again, it has to portray its universe how it feels like it, just like the
Yeah.
book does it how it feels. And they both have their problems, but I think they kind of sidestep that a little bit. While at
Mm,
the same time, I'm a little sad that not. I don't think enough Middle Eastern character like actors were hired to portray the Fremen, for example.
I will agree with
There's
that for sure.
a lot of people of color in there,
Yeah.
not enough Middle Eastern people.
Yeah. That's true. Um.
But yeah, Duncan. Let's talk about Duncan.
Yeah, I was going to talk about another actor, but let's do Duncan first because I really like. Um. I just
Jason
for,
Momoa.
Thank you, Jason Momoa. He the stuff I have seen him the most in. I haven't seen Fast 10. At the time of this recording. Is Aquaman, where the
Hmm.
charisma, the Riz has been sorry, I just dated us. The charisma has been pulled down to kind of a minimal level, and
Hmm.
him playing Duncan Idaho kind of reframes that character for me in a positive way, where it's like, all right, now I see why you send him to be friends with the Fremen, because
Yeah, you
he's
also
the
get why he's
party
a ladies'
dude.
man.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
He's so like the second he gets off that ship, like he's talking technical details to his support staff. He's like, it feels off on this side. This needs tweaking.
right,
Knowing he's leaving the next day to go to a different planet, so this plane is the least of his worries, but he's still going to do his job.
right.
And then his immediate connection, like you get that bond, that relationship between him and Paul
Paul, my boy.
immediately. Yeah,
Yeah, and like,
it's so good.
he's really good, and he's just so natural in this role, and I think he does such a good job at framing this character in an interesting way, where for me, I get why he is Leto's right hand man, and I get why he commands the room so quickly later, especially, where I think it's Stilgar comes in and spits on Leto's
Yes,
desk.
it's the meeting with Stilgar, which we'll get to when
Yeah,
we get to that actor.
there's that moment where Duncan just says like hold, and everybody does immediately, and then he has that moment of like, haha, thank you so much for your life's water, I appreciate it, and then like does the hesitating spit, and everyone's like, ah, yes, of course, yes, thank you so
Yeah,
much, spit, spit,
I
spit.
think that is something that the movie downplays a little bit, but we'll get to it when we get to that
Yeah,
scene. It's like his like love the whole connection that he has with Paul, and like Paul's talking to him about his dreams. Only 3 people know about his dreams,
yeah,
and that's
exactly,
probably his dad, his mother, and Duncan. Like they're the
right,
3 people he trusts with that information.
right,
And he tells him how he's dreaming he's gonna die, but his like the way Jason Momoa plays Duncan off it, like I think the quote he's from the book. I think his dreams make good stories, but everything important happens while we're awake. Like his
mm-hmm.
delivery on that line is really good,
Just this like,
and then the fact
haha.
that he immediately follows that up with, "Oh, hey, did you put muscle on while I was away?" And he's like, "Did I?" It's like, "No."
Yeah, I love it. I love it. He's like, "Oh, did I? No," and he just walks away. I was like, "Oh,
Uh
perfect.
huh.
It's really good.
It's so good.
It's really
Oh.
great."
We the weapon scene we've already talked about the Leto and Paul conversation, so I'm fine
Yes,
skipping that.
I want to talk about
The
this weapon scene quite a bit with
because
Paul.
it's so cool.
The thing that I think is really smart is they take maybe 2 sentences to explain the shields, and then
Uh
you
huh.
just figure it out because the shields turn red when you die. That's all it needs
Yep.
to show. It's so
Uh huh.
smart, because for the rest of the movie, like, you don't have to worry about like, ooh, what just happened. It's like, man, that shield just turned red. Like,
That's red.
I'm
Uh huh.
sorry, man, like he didn't make it. Like, it's such a smart choice that
Mm-hmm.
even when Baron Harkonnen uses it later, you know immediately what happens. When the Sandrakar use them later, you know what happens. Like, you immediately know every single time. It's so, because so many of these movies get tied down in like, well, the electromagnetic field of the shields. It's like, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need
It's
to. Blue is good,
it's
red is
done
bad. We're done.
it's done visually, like you said, in like 5 seconds. Because
It's yep,
and I love the effect. Like when he switches
yep.
it on, like he hits his little waist
Like the
thing and he switches on it,
blurry, like,
and it shimmers
oh, it's
before it
so
settles.
good.
It's a really
It's
cool effect.
it's
And then he
almost
taps the sword on the
yes.
shield and it gives that blue effect. It's like, okay,
The
now I get
and
it.
the
And he
first
does the
time,
slow thing too. He
yeah.
taps and then goes slowly to show the blade going through the shield.
And it's almost uncomfortable to look at the first time too. Like, it's such a cool effect, and that
Mm-hmm.
that that fight scene between of them. It's a bummer that the one of my favorite lines from the book is dropped, of like, the mood is only for, what is it, music and lovemaking, something like that. Like,
Yes.
that line was dropped, which is like, all right, I get it, but like, that's kind of a
It, I get it. Like I do. I say I still sucks that line is taken, but I love the performances here. Like Paul,
yeah.
like Timothy, his performance is so laissez-faire. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't care about this whole situation. And when he says I'm not really in the mood, like the
Mm-hmm.
way Josh Brolin as Gurney like flips that switch,
It,
and he
like the
comes
the the
at him,
rage.
like he goes at him hard.
I
He's
think
the
for Gur,
performance is so good.
yeah, and I think for Gurney, that's like the straw that broke the camel's back for him, where he's like, look at this like pampered baby that thinks he can just go to Arrakis with Duncan, Idaho, and just save the day and make friends with the Fremen,
Hmm.
no big deal. And he's like, I'm not in the mood for training. I'll kill you. Like
Yeah,
it's the
like
thing that was over for him.
yeah, and I love the fact that it shows how much he cares about Paul as well. That whole scene, because like he goes at him and he's like, "Yeah, you've got me, but I got you too, so we'd be
Yep,
sharing a death."
yep.
And again, I see you found the mood is a very good line delivery by
That's a very good
Josh
one.
Brolin in there,
Yep.
and it's the talk they have right after the the fight, like when they're talking about the situation, and he's like, "No, you don't understand." And specifically, I'm not gonna say it because I can't do it justice, but his delivery on you've never been out there, you've never been fought, you don't know how much danger you're actually in. I
Hmm.
care about you. He doesn't say I care about you, but he's showing it.
Right.
Like I want you to survive this situation. And when he delivers the line, "You don't know the Harkonnens, they are brutal." Like his
Oh, when he
delivery on the
yells
line,
that,
brutal,
oof, so
is
good.
really good. Like
Yep.
it's such a punch
Yeah.
straight to
A real
the heart
raw
of the matter.
delivery.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because we know, and it didn't talk about it in the book, but we know, or didn't talk about it in the movie, his sister was killed by Harkonnens. Like that's why he hates them so
Yeah.
much.
Right. That's true.
Um,
I forgot about that.
it's such a good scene. Like the
Yeah.
everything on that is so good. Like that whole delivery, that the representation of the shields, like you said, is fantastic. The combat itself is great, and everything about it is fantastic.
Hmm.
And then we go to Getty Prime.
The black and grayest planet in the
Uh
solar
huh.
system. I I love.
This is the sequence where Beast Raban comes in and says it's done. We're all left from Dune,
Yep.
and the Baron is in his bath, and Peter is there. Peter de Vries is there
I
too.
love everything about this scene and everybody who's in it. I
Uh huh.
who's it? Stellan Skarsgård. He's so perfect as the Baron Harkonnen of just this like it had to be really hard to film because the book hates this character so much and the book wants you to know like how fat and gross and uncomfortable he is to be around and like just what a monster he is from
Uh
an
huh.
appearance level that I'm glad the movie pulled back from that and was just like this is a big dude that is just a horrible monster and only is thinking about himself and only getting the Harkonnens ahead, but in the end, still really only him. And I wish that Batista got more time in this movie because I really
Yes.
like him as an actor. And while we're recording this, some of the press junket stuff around Dune Part 2 has been going around. And there's been a lot of really cool interview footage between Batista and the director saying, like, Dave Batista coming and saying, like, this is the first director that really believed in me and wanted to work with me to hone my craft and really got my strengths as an actor and
Well,
that
have you
propelled
seen
him.
Blade Runner 2049?
No, I haven't yet.
Batista's in that, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve. Um,
Ah, okay.
he's only in like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then he
Gotcha.
dies. And
Right.
his performance in that 10 minutes is heartbreaking, like
Yeah.
genuinely heartbreaking. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's why he had no issues jumping straight into this movie because it was like, I know Denis. I love
Yeah,
Denis
you want me in
because
Dune? Hell yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And
Like, and perfect casting as well to be the Beast Raban because he's a
right.
big guy. Whether
Yeah.
you want to, he's got a lot of heart and soul to him. And if you've ever seen any quote unquote shoot interviews from him as his time as a wrestler, he
Yeah.
is a genuinely lovely guy. He's a
Yeah.
genuinely lovely, nice guy. But he's a big dude, and if you want a big dude to look aggressive and play the beast, you've got a perfect cast right
That's
there.
right. It's very funny because when I was researching a bunch of stuff, about this movie. Pretty much everybody involved in the casting was basically like, hey man, this guy's making a Dune movie, and everybody's like, yeah, cool, sign me up. I don't need to read anything, I don't need to see anything, just show me where to
Mm-hmm.
show up and I'm good. And that was pretty like literally everybody in this movie, which is so
Yep.
good. um
Woefully underused as Peter DeFries is David Dashlemain.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Polka Dot Man from a couple seasons ago. um
yep.
he's
So underused. He's
He's so
so
good
good
in
though.
every movie, and I really wish he was in this more, because like he toes that line between I still need to keep things going here in Harkonnen, but I am terrified of the Baron, and I don't want to be on his bad side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
He's so good.
yeah. I wish he was in more of this.
Yeah, me too. Like I can't help but wonder like the dinner scene was cut. So how much scenes was cut with like him and everything else
Right.
that he's involved in this entire thing is I haven't watched the special features yet. I will
I
be
haven't
watching the
either.
special features.
Yeah, I ran
They're
out
on
of
the
time before
Blu-ray
I could check
discs.
those
That
out.
involved switching discs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anybody. We haven't really talked about Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica.
Nope, and I think that is actually perfect because the next thing we probably should discuss is the next scene, which is the Reverend Mother meeting with Paul. And Rebecca
Yeah.
Ferguson has probably one of the best performances of this movie in this entire sequence.
She's so
Almost no words, all
yeah.
performance. She says like 15 lines, and her
Yeah.
performance is so incredible.
Yeah. She's throughout the entire movie. I mean, Rebecca Ferguson is an incredible actor, so like that it's no surprise that she's really great in this, but she's just so outstandingly good throughout the entire thing. And I think her introduction in the movie is pretty fine, but the most of this, I like her scenes with the Reverend Mother in the book a lot too, because she's sort
It
of,
shows the parental relationship that they have a
yeah,
lot more, I think.
but she's also giving as good as she gets in the book when it's her and the Reverend Mother. And in this one,
Hmm.
there's still some of that, but I think the way that Rebecca Ferguson plays it, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah. What before we jump onto her
Mhm.
supreme performance in this sequence, a quick shout out for the again woefully underused Chang Chen as Dr. Yui,
Yeah,
um, who
he's
appears like 4 times in the movie.
he's really excuse me. He's really great because, and I really appreciate that the movie didn't go into, hey, what's that symbol on his forehead? It's like, don't worry about it. Just
Hmm.
read the books. Like, that's not
Yeah, you
even,
don't need to know.
we don't have the time. But I really like that they do such a good job in this movie of him just being like, yeah, I'm the family doctor. Don't worry about it. His heart's great. Don't worry about it. Anyways, I
Hmm.
took the shields down and killed you all because of my wife. So, and it's just like, but like the way that he plays it and the way that the movie sells it commits the whole thing really well, because he sells it in like 3 sentences while
Hmm.
he's replacing Leto's
The
tooth.
tooth.
And it's just
Yeah.
like, man, you got exactly the right person for the job to explain this massive conspiracy in a very short amount of time, and you managed to sell it in a way that I really didn't think they were gonna get. I didn't think they were gonna be able to nail it, because they kept pushing that and pushing it and pushing it off until it happened. And I was like, well, now I
Hmm.
don't know what you're gonna do. And it's like, well, okay, you did it. Kudos.
Yep. And in this scene as well, like he shows like his concern for Paul and his concern for the family,
Mm-hmm.
because he talks in to Paul in Mandarin
Yes.
about making sure to be careful in this current situation, assuming that Jessica doesn't understand the language or he's speaking quietly enough so that she can't hear him from that
Right.
far away.
And then
Um,
Jessica uses the hand signals to Paul
the
to
secret
talk
sign
to
language.
him, so Dr. Yui doesn't see. And it's like, yes, great. This is perfect. I love it.
Hmm.
Ah, this movie's great.
Yeah, we'll get to the test in a second, but I feel like we need to talk about Rebecca Ferguson's performance here because
Mm-hmm.
she sells being afraid and that maternal thing of don't let my kids see how afraid I am
Yeah.
thing, where like when she puts Paul in that room and leaves, she's basically having a panic attack right
Hmm.
outside the door.
Yeah. And she's had this
Which
amazing nervous energy, like this
mhm.
nearly frantic, panicky kind of jitteriness as she's leaving
Yeah, and
him.
it starts like the second she wakes him up in the middle of the night and is like,
Yep.
get dressed.
Yep.
Like the delivery of the limited lines that she has here is good. But I
Yeah.
think her bodily performance, like her body language throughout this whole sequence, just sells it that much better because she knows what he's about to go into. She knows the test he's about to face. She knows the fear, and
Yep.
that's something we don't really get in the book. Is her side of this scene? We get a
Right.
little bit here and there, like her talking about how worried she is about the situation and the relief that she feels when she opens the door, but we don't get the visual performance of like that
Right.
basically having a panic attack. There's a lot of internal voices in the book, and one of the issues with the 84, 85 Dune is they audio record a lot of the internal voices, a lot of the internal voices.
Sure.
Whereas
That's
I think
hard to
this
do.
movie makes, yeah, and I think this movie makes the smart decision of not doing any of the internal
Right.
voices.
Yep.
Doesn't do
It'd
any
be a
of
little
that
too
voiceover at
hokey.
all. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of hokey, we should probably watch that movie at some point because oh boy, is
Yeah,
that
we
thing
we still
hokey.
have the whatever it is, 84 or 85 movie and the 2000 miniseries that we likely
Mhm.
won't be covering on this season.
Correct. This is a time crunch season.
After the
Uh,
Alien season, I just have to couch and say likely won't cover it. I don't want to put
yes.
anything in stone
The
here.
Alien quadrilogy season. Uh-huh.
That's
Uh-huh.
right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Only
Yep.
4 movies
All
in that
all
season.
6 movies in the quadrilogy. Yep.
Uh-huh. But yeah, so do we talk about the test? Shall we talk about the test? The
I
test is
think
good.
I think it's really well done. I like them cutting the footage of him with his hand in the box to footage of like his hand being on fire somewhere else. I think that's probably the smartest way you can show that he's in incredible pain while still reinforcing from the book that he feels like his hand is actually on fire.
Uh-huh.
That had to be a hard scene to figure out.
Yes, and the 84 one is great as well for that, by the
Mm-hmm.
way. I think the performances in this scene are great, and I love the fact that this is one of those moments with the soundtrack that I really like, because the soundtrack comes up and starts being very oppressive as he gets more and more in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then it does that cut as well, where it's cutting to Jessica on the outside and it's cutting to Paul on the
Right.
inside, and it's flashing between the two of them. And then she gets control of her panic attack by stating the litany against fear. And
Mm-hmm.
as she's doing that, you get the impression, it doesn't say it, but you get the impression that Paul is doing the same thing. And
Right.
there's this great acting moment by Timothy Chalamet. I thought he was a good actor beforehand. I think this scene nails it. He's a great one
Mm-hmm.
because he goes from his expressions are fantastic. Him being
Yeah.
in pain, I think, is great. I like the fact that he yells and then he gets the whole no sound, no,
Mm-hmm.
don't make a sound kind of thing. But the moment where he clicks it together and he starts using his training to disassociate from the
Right.
pain,
Yep.
and he goes from pain to this stern face, and his head comes up and he starts looking the Reverend Mother right in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And like the soundtrack goes from oppressive to hopeful.
Yeah,
I think
it
it's this
switches.
really good moment
Mm-hmm.
of that whole, and you get the fact that at that point he's got it. He
Yep.
understands exactly what he's doing,
Yep.
and he's gained control of this situation in the only way he could.
Right.
It's really good scene. Like it's a hard. This is one of those scenes where it is a hard scene to film. You talk about
Yeah.
that scene from the book, and that is a really hard scene to imagine visually.
Yeah.
And I think his performance is incredible in that moment, where
Yeah.
he's just like, okay, I'm struggling with this, but I got it. I got this. I got this. And his face slowly becomes more confident as he realizes he's got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he survives. I don't like the fact that we skip over the fact that the Reverend Mother puts him through more than he's put any other female through in this test,
Yeah.
which is mentioned in the book. He's like, well, I must have wanted you to fail because no female has ever withstood that amount of
Right. She's
of pain,
really
essentially.
testing him to like She needs to
Yes.
know whether he's a human or an animal, which the the movie touches on a little bit. Like she mentions it once, and then she like says goodbye to him and be like, "Goodbye, human." And I was like, "Okay, like you're dancing around the test here in a way that I think is
Yeah.
interesting. Like
They're
you
not
touch it a
flat out
little bit."
stating, "Hey, we're doing eugenics."
Right,
We're just
exactly.
hinting at it a little bit.
Yeah, like you kind of get enough, I think, in the movie, but I think it was interesting that they touched on it at all. And then I
Hmm.
really like the anger from the Reverend Mother. I think it's the next scene where she's like, "Yeah, we told you to have a daughter, and then you just went ahead and had a
This is
son."
this is the fog scene. Yeah, when
Right.
they're in the fog and she's about to leave.
Oh, it's so well shot and
And
just
then
like,
as well, the fact that Paul is there and like they have that conversation, and then when Jessica turns around, Paul is there, but they don't close the gap. They
yeah,
keep each other in the fog at a distance,
yeah,
which like is it a visual representation of like Jess keeping him in the dark a little bit so that he's not to know exactly what the situation is. But
right.
again, it's a three-way conversation where one part of it is had and is incredible. Like you said, the Reverend Mother's anger at that moment is really great. It's
Hmm.
like, look, she even drops the Missionary Protectiva
You're
line
right.
at this moment, and you're just like, what the hell does that mean? If you
What's
haven't read
going
the
on here?
books, uh-huh. And then yeah, she like storms off, and then when Jessica turns around, that's a whole different kind of anger as well. Like,
Hmm.
so Jessica's kind of getting it from both fronts, and again, her performance is fantastic in this
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. It's interesting to see the Reverend Mother. I think the way they address it in the movie is a lot clearer than in the book of just like, oh, so you thought you'd just like have the one, right? You're just gonna train him and
Hmm.
turn him into the one. You just thought you'd do that, and then Paul being like, what'd you
What's the
train me
one?
for? Am I
Uh-huh.
the one? What's this one thing about? So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting way to frame it instead of throwing around the bigger term and just kind of simplifying it and
They
being like,
drop
it's
that
just
in
the
that
one.
scene though.
They do.
They drop that.
They drop it a bunch, and I'm glad that I had the subtitles on in the movie because there's a lot of whispers in the background that are whispering that too,
Hmm.
which I think is a
Oh,
really
that's in the soundtrack. Yeah.
that's a really cool little touch. But I
So
think the less you lean on that, the better.
yeah, I the one thing I don't like about this is it takes away Jessica's reason for having a son.
Mm,
Because Jessica was supposed to have a girl, she was gonna have a girl, but she loves Leto, and Leto
yeah,
wanted a son.
right.
That's why she had a son. She didn't do it because she wanted to have the one, quote
It wasn't a
unquote.
power
She
play.
No, she did it because she loves Leto. Like
Yeah,
that's why she did it. It was an act of love, not an act of treason against the Bene Gesserit.
right. That whole kind of subplot is lost. There's a good season later when Leto is like, I really should have married you. Like you
Yeah,
get a
that's
little
his one scene with Jessica. Yeah,
yeah, like you get a little bit of that, but I think there's too much nuance in there to really put in this kind of already stuffed movie.
yeah. Uh, Visually, I just want to drop this in here. Like we get the leaving montage now, so we're about to get to the interesting part,
Hmm.
the quote unquote interesting part, the dangerous part, we'll say.
Right.
Um, but I love the leaving montage.
Hmm.
Of all of the ships leaving, Paul putting his hand in water for potentially the last time of his life.
I really liked that shot. I think maybe if this is the first time you've run into a Dune thing, or maybe the first time you've watched the movie, that might seem weird, but I liked that sort of the almost longing before he's left sort of thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I think they do an incredible. They don't show the guild ships transporting people. That's fine. We
Yeah,
don't need
that's like
to
a
talk.
whole other can of
We
worms.
don't. We don't need to talk about the guild navigators at this point. We don't need to talk about the fish people.
Right. Which they touch on, I think, enough to say, like, this is why spice is important. Here are the number of reasons, and one of them is it's the safe way to do interstellar travel.
Yes,
Sorry, the
but I
only safe
love.
way to do interstellar travel.
Correct. I love this sequence because, like, the shots are good. The soundtrack is great. Specifically, what I love is it shows the ships leaving Caladan and going into the guild ship in the atmosphere, and then it cuts to the guild ship above Arrakis,
Yeah.
and it shows these tiny little dots leaving the guild ship,
Yes.
and then the very next shot is those tiny dots overshadowing thousands of people on the ground. Like
It's
there's thousands of
so
people,
cool.
and one of the shadows is covering a whole bunch of these people. It's like, oh, so those ships in space are very, very
They're
big.
big, big. Yeah, that
Mhm.
I think that's one thing that this movie does really well is that sense of scale of it's not just that the sandworms are big and you get a good sense of scale there, but all of this stuff is big. And man, those ships look really cool. They do a really cool job of showing, like, hey, we
Which
made some
ones? The
cool
two,
space.
the, the navigator ships, or the ships that they come down in? Because
I'm
there's a whole
mostly
bunch of cool ships.
I'm mostly thinking of the ones they come down in, the kind of like sleek, almost
The
silvery looking ones.
Yes,
So cool, man. And the
yeah, they
ornithopters
land
look
on
incredible.
Dune, and hey, it's bright. It's very,
I
very
really like
bright.
how they do that of just everybody just being like, oh, it's gosh, yeah, okay. It's really there's a background line later in the movie where they're like, it's currently 90 degrees. In 10 minutes it will be up to 120 degrees. It's just like, God, this
Uh-huh.
planet, man. Sheesh.
Mhm. But yeah, we get the Lisan Al Gaib scene where
Yep.
everybody is saying Lisan Al Gaib. I love Thufir at this moment saying, don't be happy about this welcome wagon that we've got because it's Harkonnen tradition that everybody is forced to do so.
Yep.
So don't be too surprised if this isn't as joyous as you think.
Right.
And then yeah, everyone heads from the big ships to the Ornithopter to head to Arakeen, and we
Mm-hmm.
get the Ornithopter in all its glory for the first moment.
God, they're so
That
cool.
is a cool ship.
It's one of those things that like I'm sure that took them forever to figure out. I was reading some of the production stuff. There were two large scale ornithopter, like full scale ornithopter models. One of them was the Gurney and Paul escape from the sandworm ones where they're watching it. The other one was
Mhm.
basically the inside shot ones. And I cannot imagine how long it must have taken them to figure out how to make a ship that's cool enough in the books to make it actually look cool and interesting and potentially functional on
Yeah,
screen. Like
the
that's
wings are
incredible.
so cool. Like how they did
Yeah.
those wings, I do not know, but it sells it. Like the way those
Yep.
wings rotate and move sells
And the
the
way they're
ability
they're they're
of the ship.
flapping, and then every time they
Mhm.
tuck into the ship, I'm always like, God, that's the coolest thing I've seen.
It's so cool, and biologically accurate because that's actually how dragonflies
Right.
dive. They tuck their wings in and do
Yep.
dive bombs. Like that's what they do.
It's so
I,
cool.
we get the best scene of that in a little bit, which is the harvester scene, which we'll
Yep.
get to. But I did write a note here, which was like, oh hey, by the way, Arrakis is beautiful as well, but in a
Yeah.
completely different way.
And it has completely different architecture in a way that I think is really interesting. Like really thick walls, angled buildings. You can see when Leto and Gurney are talking, and the kind of the walls swivel to close to protect you from the heat. Like it's a totally different architecture from Kaladin in a way that I think is really interesting,
Yeah,
and it's not only sells you as them being a fish out of water, but everything about their life is different. Down to I live in these like these sterile like stone buildings now.
hmm yeah, it's so good. Like
Yeah,
that, I think it looks incredible. And at no point, like obviously there's a lot of CGI in this movie. At no point did it jump out at me as
yeah,
CGI. I think they did
yep.
a genuinely great job with it in this. I'm sure in 5 years this will all look like baby like CGI in
But
comparison.
I think they use enough practical stuff, especially when it's sand related, to make it look cool. Because there's nothing that looks faker than CGI sand, and they use it
Yeah,
so minimally in this movie. I think that's really smart.
yeah. We do get the shout out Mapes scene, which is important but not important at the same time. Like it's
It's
important because
okay.
it builds the legend, but I think Shadow Mapes is again underused in this movie. But
Yeah, and
it is what it is. If
I
you're gonna
think
cut something, I could see Shadow Mapes being cut.
yeah, like you get introduced to the Chris knife, which looks incredibly cool. I still not sure about her performance when she like yells out while Jessica's talking to her, and she's like, "Oh well, it's just the prophecies coming true." Just a little overwhelmed. It's like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, okay, sure, fine, okay, fine."
Yeah, and I, they kind of, I think that so we get the trees scene next, and I think they kind of replace the garden in the building with the trees scene
That's what I was thinking.
because
Yeah,
the garden in the building during the diner the dinner scene, Jessica states that no, they're going to keep it as a hope to one day that Arrakis will eventually be this
yeah.
paradise.
The whole
Whereas,
planet can look like this.
yeah, whereas at that point the trees are used as a hearken and look how much water we have kind of thing
Yeah,
to show off
I'm
their
wasting
thing.
100 lives worth of water every day. Like it just
Uh-huh.
if you haven't figured out that the Harkonnens are cruel by this point, I think that continues to settle in. And I like how they push the garden thing
Onto the trees.
all the way until the end when you're in the ecological area underground.
Uh-huh.
I like that they pushed that all the way till back then until you know way more about Arrakis. And I think that plan failing because of the lucrative nature of the spice, I think pushing it
Yeah,
all the way till then makes it have a bigger impact.
yeah, definitely. I was offended that Paul was out in the desert heat without a still suit in this scene, though. He's just
That
walking around in his
that
regular clothes.
yeah, like after they had closed up the walls and stuff, he's just like, "Hey man, what are you up to?" And I'm like, "Bro, why aren't you wearing anything?" Like I know the first time he puts on a still suit is important later, but like can you get
Yes.
like a cool umbrella? Like what's his face? Like Thurfier? Like
Uh-huh.
can you get
Thufia's
something?
little parasol that's
Yeah,
cool
like
as hell.
can you get something, man? So
We do get more hollow lessons for Paul as he continues to learn about things. This is the Hunter Seeker scene. Um,
I love it so much.
did you catch did you catch the reference and the before the Hunter Seeker? Did you catch the reference in the vegetation?
No, I don't think I did.
There's a little mouse hopping
Oh, I
around
did
in the
where he's like, "Oh,
vegetation.
look at this little guy." And I was like, "Oh, it's him. It's that guy.
Yeah,
It's
it's
his mouse."
literally Muad'Dib,
Yeah. I really I Oh, there's so much I like
the
about
Hunter
this
Seeker scene.
this scene. You were talking about the holovids earlier. I love him hiding in the holovid and seeing it projecting on his body and his
On his
face.
body. Yeah.
That's such a cool effect. But just like we've been talking about before, the film being okay with silence is pays off so well in this of just and you being
There's
able to
nothing. All you can hear is like the little
yeah, and
of the
like
wings.
after it bores through the wall and just seeing how tiny it is, like you see these huge wide shots where it's just like 2 pixels wide, sort of silently going across the screen. Like it's so well done, and I couldn't even imagine seeing in theater of just like biting your fingernails quietly while you're waiting for this thing
Hmm.
to kill Paul. Like it's so
It's really
impeccable.
well done. I
Yeah.
so like again him hiding as well. Like
Yeah.
this is the part where it sucks that he doesn't take it to the garden and do all of that kind of stuff. But
Right.
the tension in this scene is unreal. It's really well done.
Yeah.
Like him standing still and knowing he has to stand still. I like the glance at the shield generator. It doesn't tell you the inner monologue. It shows the shield generator, which you've seen him activate a couple of
Yep.
times. That's on the other side of the room, and you're just like, what's he gonna
Welp.
do?
Yep.
Mm, oops.
Yeah. Oh,
And
it's great.
it's a great scene. I like again the holovids are great. The Hunter Seeker is great. The tension is fantastic. I like the fact that he saves Shadow Mapes just like he does in the books.
Yep.
Again, building the legend kind of thing.
Yep.
Again, it sucks that we don't get the garden. I find it interesting that we do, however, get us cut here back to Gady Prime to the spider human.
Yeah, what's up with the like
So
leather
it's not
daddy
really
spider?
mentioned in the regular books, but the Harkonnens are a big fan of pulling people apart and putting them back together in different ways.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of things on Gady Prime that are not natural, we will say.
I really
And
like the delivery of the mother just being like,
get
here's
out,
enough.
and then it leaves. Uses
Yeah.
the voice and says "get out," and then it
Yep.
leaves, and it's like, oh, it understands.
Yep. It's such a good delivery of like, I don't think you know what you're doing in general, but you might want to be more careful. And then the like cone of silence that they have was actually pretty interesting.
So that's actually something that you haven't been introduced to in the book yet, but you
Mm.
will in the next part. It's like literally a really important part of the next part of the book.
Oh, okay.
So that is an in-world thing. That is something that exists in the
Sure.
books.
Yeah, it's another great performance of Harkonnen. Just
Arrakis is Arrakis.
yeah, just like shrugging his shoulders and be like, whatever happens over there is
Accidents
going to
happen.
happen, man. Who can control Arrakis? Certainly not us anymore.
Uh-huh. But yeah, again, it's not in the books, but I like the fact that it's the Reverend Mother bargaining for Jessica and Paul's life.
Yep.
Which is a nice touch because that shows how much the Bene Gesserit are invested in that side of things. They do have other options available, which she mentions in the first scene with Jessica, which I know what they are. You don't yet because you haven't got to the rest of the book. Yeah, we meet Duncan. Duncan arrives back from hanging out with the Fremen.
Yep.
And first we get some crap talk about the planetary ecologist, which is a small scene that's fine.
Right.
Then it cuts to Duncan arriving back, and he has Stilgar with him.
Mm-hmm.
Stilgar's only Javier Bardem, by the way.
One of my favorite performances of this movie of just like, oh, you guys are here. Cool. Anyways, like, if you could stop bothering us, that'd be great, but we know you're not gonna, because you're probably, like, way worse than the Harkonnens, so whatever. And then, like we talked about before, I like the spitting scene, where even Leto is just like, two. And
then Leto says to him, like, look, we're not the Harkonnens.
Yeah.
Your land will be your land. We will not raid your sietches.
Yep.
I can't help it if I am forced to go into the desert to do a thing that the Emperor has told me to do, but I will try my best to respect your privacy, to respect your traditions, and your honor. Right. We will have no ill will between us as far as I am concerned, if you can understand that I have to do what I have to do sometimes.
Right.
And Stilgar's response is... he's like, okay, I have to go. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say to you. Goodbye.
Yeah,
I have to
I love
go.
that. Just like peace. Yeah,
like
so good.
What we know as book readers as well is basically Stilgar is second in command to the entire Fremen population.
Yep.
There's only one person above Stilgar at this point,
right?
And that's Liet,
right?
Who we haven't met yet, but we will soon.
Oh, yeah, that's a great scene. It's genuinely surprising to see him in that role of just like, yeah, he's perfect. He's the perfect Stilgar. You can't really be mad about that.
Well, like his delivery on everything is just so fed up with everything. You can tell. Yeah. He's like, I'm here because I need to be. I'm like, Paul says, would you not stay? We would honor you. And he's like, well, honor demands I be elsewhere, which is a great line.
I love that line of just like, that's no thanks. Anyways, bye.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
I do like the scene where it shows Duncan in the barracks explaining how, the Fremen aren't simple. Like, don't let
look at all this cool tech.
This is a paracompass. This shows you north because a regular compass don't work because the two moons mess with the compass.
Yep.
So this is a paracompass that will show you the way. The Fremen invented this. This is a thumper. The Fremen invented this.
Right.
These are all Fremen technology. They're not as simple as you think.
Yeah, like don't discount them. They're way better than you think they are.
And so this is the Liet Kynes. Sorry, Dr. Kynes sequence. We don't know.
I really, really, really like the woman who plays Kynes in this. I think,
Sharon Duncan Brewster.
yeah, I think she nails the role in a way that I prefer to the book, because she's there as an observer that is saying she's constantly towing the line, but always kind of helping the Atreides, because I think she sees the possibility for Arrakis to be better. So she's kind of always sort of nudging and then just being like, Emperor said I can't say anything. Sorry. Wink.
Mm-hmm. Like,
Um,
she's open with them. She's like, this is the type of thing I was told not to talk about. I was
yep.
told not to report this kind of thing. So therefore, nothing I can do.
And there's also a lot of like wiping her hands of just like, the desert is really hard on technology. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
just like, what are you going to do?
So again, the gender swap didn't bother me in the slightest. I actually think
No.
it's really good in this.
Yeah, I do too.
I know Kansas bloodline, so I don't think you know yet Kansas bloodline, but
I
I
don't
know
think so.
Kansas bloodline, so I know how important their relationship to other people can be.
Mm.
So I think it's actually positive that this is a female rather than a male.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole scene with they do the tension really well here of kind showing up doing the still suit like appreciation moment where it's
Mm-hmm.
like explaining what they are, and it's like, oh hey, by the way, thimble full of water a day, that's all you'll lose if you have a good functioning still suit.
Yep. Still
uh,
such a good like distillation of why the still suits are so good. Like it's
uh-huh.
that's all you need to describe. Like these are incredibly efficient machines powered by you. Don't forget, the Fremen are not like
Yes.
desert hillbillies that are barely put together. Like they know what they're doing.
And the desert is harsh,
Yeah.
very very harsh,
Yeah.
because we didn't talk about it, but in the Duncan scene, he's like, yeah, I came from CH. There was probably about 500,000 people living there,
Yep.
and there's probably about 100, 200 CHs.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, wait, the Harkonnens thought there was like a million Fremen. That's like
Well,
15 million Fremen.
the Harkonnens thought there was 500 or 50,000 total on the planet, and
Mm-hmm.
Duncan is like, yeah, there's like 1 to 2 million. So like, you don't know what you're dealing with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you are outnumbered, and you need to respect them.
Yeah. But yeah, the kind scene with the still suits is great. I love the fact that she speaks in Chekhovska.
Mm-hmm.
He will know your ways as if he was born to them, I think is the
Yep.
line. And
A
Paul
really,
kind of gets it. He doesn't
yeah,
know it, but he kind of knows it because of his whole training with his mother situation. Like, you get the
right.
feeling he understands bits and pieces, but not all of it. And
Her
literally says, are you a Fremen?
her delivery on that whole thing, especially that line, is really good. Of just, even she can't help but believe the prophecy a
In the
little bit.
prophecy a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
like
gets
she's even
sucked in
sort
a
of
little
like,
bit.
oh, ooh, maybe there is something here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And we can't break it down shot by shot, but this whole sequence, from the moment they take off in the ornithopters
Mm-hmm.
to the moment they get to the harvester, this is where we see the sick as hell dive bomb that Leto does
Uh-huh.
in the harvester. Fantastic moment.
One of my
Um,
favorite parts in this scene is the all the radio chatter of just like, yeah, confirm worm sign, yawn, worm's coming in 5 minutes. All right, it will be here in a couple minutes to lift you up. No big deal. Like, it's just a lot of like, yeah, this deadly worm is gonna come and swallow us. It's fine. We got a couple minutes. Whatever. Like, just the
uh-huh.
working stiffs
The
kind of
the
thing.
casual nature of everything.
Yeah, it's really, and like, I think it really reinforces, in a way that I don't. Maybe the book didn't, for me at least. Of when Kynes is like, they are going to mine until the very
Harvest to the
last second,
last minute.
and it's just
Yeah.
like, that is what they're doing, man. Like, if they come back with
Hmm.
3 grains less, the Harkonnens would probably kill them. So like, they are getting
Yes.
every possible little bit. Um, yeah, I really, you get the little shot too of Leto being like, "Hey,
So
was that a worm over there?" Like his
yeah,
better eyesight.
100%. Like it's a great reveal. He's like, "Is that a worm?" And then Khan's like confirms it, radios it in. I do like the fact that I miss the fact that they don't do the. Yeah, Duke Leto is the one who saw it get your bonus and switch it all between everybody
Yeah,
because of the Dukes thing. That's a bit iffy.
yeah.
But to give you an idea, it is said that spice was so valuable that during the Carino Empire, which is Shaddam IV, the one we're in right now,
Hmm.
a briefcase of spice is enough to buy a planet. So
Jeez.
they're gonna harvest to the last second.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much great
This
action in
this
these
emergency
scenes.
dive
It's
is so
so
good.
cool.
I will say one thing I need to shout out here before we get into the dive and everything. There's a great shot as like it focuses in on the harvester and the harvester is in the background and it's focused on that, and then the ornithopter comes up in the foreground and it's blurry.
That's a
The
great
shot as
shot.
it comes up and is hovering above, just watching
Yeah, because
that sequence is so good.
because Kynes right before had said something about like, oh, if you go up a little bit higher, you'll be able to see something. Maybe it's the worm's cloud or whatever, but just that little shot of the ornithopter rising is just like, yeah, man, these things are cool. All this tech is
Uh-huh.
cool.
But yeah, the emergencies, like the feeling of emergency is palpable when they're like, yeah,
Hmm.
the harvest is busted. Nothing we can do about that, or the carryall is, I should say.
Yeah.
And yeah, Leto does the dive bomb because he's piloting the ornithopter himself. Because why not?
Yep.
Um, that whole sequence is great. The wings tucking, like you said, the
Yep.
dive bomb, the coming in, and yeah, they. One of my favorite things that this movie does is the visual representation of the spice, which you really see in
Yes.
this sequence the first time
Yep.
when they're all going out there and you start seeing the orange speckles in the air.
And
Not just regular sand,
they're
that
like
orange reflective
reflective.
speckle.
Yeah, it's almost like um the effect in Dread with the slow-mo. You get that like otherworldly like tinkling rainbow spectral sort of effect, because you could see the spice in one shot with the harvester. There's like orange streaks on the ground, and Kynes even mentions like, oh, looks like they found a pretty good amount of spice over there.
A
um
rich vein from the look of it.
yeah, like and it's interesting that you get both the mile high view and then kind of the up.
Yeah, the macro and the microscopic views
Yeah,
of the situation. And I
yeah,
love the reason why I love that is because we know by this point in the movie that Spice is messing with Paul a little bit. His dreams are getting more frequent here and everything
yeah,
like that. And then he literally runs into a field of it trying to help people,
yep,
and it messes him up. But I
yeah,
like the fact that it messes him up, but we don't see what he saw until like the next shot. Like the
right,
next scene when he's talking about it, I think he's talking about it with his mother. Um, but we don't see that sequence until after the fact. All we get here is him on his knees in the desert, and the callback of I can tell it was you by your footsteps, old man.
mm-hmm,
And then again, he's got him by the shoulder and is dragging him back to the ornithopter.
yep,
They do liquid sand. They
yes,
explain how the worms move and feed and eat
mm-hmm,
and everything else by doing the vibrational liquid sand explanation.
yep.
And it's genius.
And looking at stuff in this movie, that's a practical effect, is that liquid
Huh.
sand effect, and it works so well because you, like I said earlier, you can spot fake like CG sand just like CG water a mile away. The best way to do it is to make it a practical effect. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, just essentially vibrate a giant steel slab under a bunch of sand, and it makes that effect. Um, and it works so well. Of just like, I don't know what's under
It
that thing, but
explains the
man,
worms instantly.
yeah, but man, like whatever can make sand move that way, you guys gotta get out of there right now. And seeing them sink into the sand, like up to their
Uh-huh.
wrists almost immediately, is just like, oh, you guys gotta get out of there. This is going real
And
bad.
you get the great sideways shot as well as they run to the left as it
Yep.
comes through the dune in front of them, like, and
Oh,
just
it's so good.
destroys the entire dune.
And then probably one of my favorite shots of the movie where they're
The
hanging
hanging
out of the
off.
back, out of the ornithopter, and circling around the worm as it's coming out and eating the harvester.
Hmm.
Just like and
All you
and
see is teeth as well.
but you also get the escalation of scale of you see Paul on the ground next to the harvester, and he's minuscule next to the treads of it.
He doesn't even come up to the tread, yeah.
Right. And then you see how big the harvester is, and then you see the sandworm is like 10 times larger than that, and it just gulps down this tiny harvester. Like we talked about with the guild ships earlier, that it manages to sell the scale really well. It's not just like I'm a sandworm, rawr, like I'm really big.
Hmm.
It keeps selling you on all of this scale time and time again. So it's not just here's a big sandworm, here is the biggest thing you've seen in your life with millions of teeth that are also these knives, and
Uh-huh.
this thing is terrifying. How do they even get the teeth out of this thing to make a knife? What the hell? What's wrong with
Yep.
you guys?
We could talk about it later for the one of the final shots of the movie, but apparently Denis was working for 2 years to figure out how to make sandworms believable,
I
like
bet.
how their biological nature would work,
Right.
and all of the other aspects of it. Like it took him like 2 years of like
Right.
doing some sketches, designs, thinking physically and biologically how it would work, in addition to what is noted in the books.
And without making it look goofy, because sometimes you see like
Yes.
drawings of sandworms that people make, and it's sort of like, I don't. That's not really scary. Or like, oh, that just looks like a round shark mouth. Like, you really, that has to be so challenging. And even seeing the like bronze motif of it early on, where it's huge and has the sun coming
Oh
out of
yeah,
its
the one
mouth.
on the wall in Paul's room. That's
Yeah,
so good.
even at that point, you're just like, man, these things are for real. You can't.
Hmm.
Arrakis is terrible.
Bless the maker and his water. We do
Mm-hmm.
get the line
It's a good one.
from Kynes,
Yep.
which again is just those hints that Kynes isn't exactly all as she set
Right.
out to be.
Yep.
But yeah, this is the scene after that when we get Leto telling Paul off, which I think is great. Like it's
Yep.
genuinely, it's like I'm not going to beat the crap out of you right now, but I really should,
Yeah.
and I'm going to explain this to you in a way that makes you understand that I should.
Yep.
Um, and then he has a quick checkup with Dr. Yui, and he explains his visions
Right.
of like him. It's Chani, is who
Yep.
we're seeing,
I see a
and
woman in the
it's
desert.
yeah, and it's like the interesting mix of like the potential futures where it's like there's one of them kissing, there's one of her stabbing him, there's
Right.
the knife that she hands him.
She's never wearing the still suit in the majority of the scenes, which is interesting.
Uh-huh. Yes, which I think is a great thing. And then it cuts to that shot of Jessica in the alcove with the tattoos on her face and holding the baby.
Yep.
And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I know you're pregnant,
Yeah.
and I know you're pregnant with a girl."
Yep.
Which I I'm not a fan of the fact that they moved that from much later in the book because he actually has that revelation while they're in the tent,
Right.
escaping. They move it to here, which is whatever. Like, why wouldn't he immediately tell his dad? Is kind of one of those things.
Well, I think it's
Um,
interesting because it takes a problem that I had a little bit with the book is you get that big dump about like a holy war in my name in the tent, and I think if you're seeding that throughout the entirety of the movie or the book of just like I'm getting little flashes of it the entire time, that whole scene there with Paul in the armor is a lot less unbelievable. It's like, what are we even seeing? It's like, oh, this effect and this thing is strengthening over the book or over the movie.
uh-huh.
So that's kind of the natural lead up to it. I kind of I kind of prefer this a little bit because it's building and building and building the whole time.
Yeah. Um, uh, we go to Salsala Secundus,
Mm-hmm.
and we get the Sardaukar preparation for battle scene, which is
Yeah,
something else.
yeah. The stuff with the Sardaukar is interesting in the movie. I it feels like they're a little bit wasted,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure what else to do with them.
Yeah, I think part of the reason for this scene, I think, is to kind of set up that they're kind of religious zealots,
Right.
of a form.
Right.
Like war is their religion. That is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that they literally say to Peter, who's there, Peter to Freeze,
Mm-hmm.
like, the Harkonnens outnumber the Atreides. Why do you need our help at all?
Right.
And Peter's like, well, Atreides have kind of got like some of the best trained legions in the known universe, trained by
Mm-hmm.
Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho. And the Sardaukar responds with, "Excuse me? Like, you think they will be us? We
Right.
are the Sardaukar.
Yeah, who do
We
you
do not
think we
lose."
are?
Like, and the fact that it shows the sacrificial people being sacrificed,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get anointed with the blood of the people
Yep.
being sacrificed, is it kind of gives you the intense vibe of them.
Right. And it's
Again,
shot
there's
very differently in a way that is very stark, and it's
because it
almost like
cuts to rain.
right.
It's a rain all over the place. You've just
Yeah,
gone
that's
from
true.
Dune
Right.
to this place where they're covered in rain the whole time.
And seeing that armor in the rain, those like face masks in the rain is always cool. That's always just a cool shot where it's like, yeah, this helmet got wet, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's cool as hell.
Yeah,
I'm a simple man.
yes, I don't like the fact that they don't change into Harkonnen uniforms for the attack. But again,
Right.
it's a visual representation, so I get that they don't because you want to be able to differentiate between them.
Yeah.
We get the Leto and Jessica conversation about Paul, where he's saying, "What will you do to protect him?" I'm not talking to the mother. I'm talking to the Bene Gesserit.
I
Because
really
he's starting
liked
to
that
have
line.
his moments as well
Yeah.
with the whole situation. And then hell breaks loose.
Yeah, I really like
Did this come
this.
quicker than you thought it would, out of curiosity?
Yeah, because I thought this was going to be a shorter scene more towards the end, but I really like when Leto gets out of bed and he realizes that something is wrong and the whole scene is quiet and he makes that hushed call over the radio and it's not answered. And that's the moment where it's like, oh no, something is really wrong.
From here to the end, the one thing that bothers me about the movie is they use the ammunition that slows down when it hits things.
Okay.
I don't like that. They found it. The reason for the shields is because firearms don't work, because firearms will just be reflected by the shields. Yet here in the movie, they're using a form of firearms that works against shields. I don't like that thing. I would have preferred it if it was different. Don't show the ships as shielded, but visually it's incredible.
Yeah, I have to say, like, watching this thing fall and hit the shield and slow down and just slowly explode, incredibly cool.
The explosion inside of the shield is sick as hell as well.
It's really cool. But I liked part of the thing that was interesting in the book of the Atreides not knowing how to fight back against the artillery that was in the caves that they were using against them, because the Atreides had never really fought against artillery before. It's like it was something that was so alien to them. But I think probably going through explaining all of that in the moment was probably too much.
Yeah,
but and it looks
like the ships could have just been not shielded on the ground,
right?
Like they could have just been bombed
because it drives the worms
before
crazy.
they were active.
Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's fine. It's whatever. It's like, okay, I accept it. We're gonna move past it, and then we'll see how things go.
Sometimes you got to make an action scene look cool, and I guess that's fine.
Yes, sometimes you got to make an explosion inside of a shield look sick as hell, and that's fine too. Especially considering they all go at once, which is just whatever. But yeah, like the part where the dart goes through his shield, I think is a nice touch.
That's a real like seeing it fly
it explains it again visually,
right? Because it hits the shield and hesitates, and you could see the shield like wobbling like it's trying to fight, and it just goes through into the part of the back that he can't reach. And it's like, yeah, man, that's really good. You all right? That's cool.
And yeah, let's see. There's that. I love the moment where it cuts to Gurney coming out of the barracks with all of the men saying like anything with guns, get it off the ground.
Yeah.
And as he's running towards the ships with everyone, he looks up and you just see in the outer atmosphere the outline of a guild ship
Oh man.
in the sky.
Yep.
And it's like a 2 second shot. He's like, uh-oh. And he sees it and he reacts to it and then he keeps running towards the ships. That's
Yep.
when the explosions all happen. But that shot of the guild ship in the atmosphere is like, yeah, now you know. Now you know 100% you've
Yeah.
been betrayed.
It's for real. Like, ah, man. And we also get somehow an even cooler ornithopter flying scene with Duncan flying
Oh,
with the laser.
so yeah, let's talk about how Duncan is a badass.
Yeah, like the best pilot in the galaxy, apparently. Like,
Wipes out like 3 Sardaukar, then he wipes out like 5 or 6 Harkonnens, and as he's just
yep.
walking towards the Ornithopter, the other Harkonnens just run away. He's like, yeah, run, dogs, run.
I like that where they're just like, I'm not even messing. It's Duncan, Idaho. I'm getting out of here. I'm not even. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Yeah, that scene was really good. And then just like some incredibly cool flying.
And fighting, like
Yeah.
the stair sequence where you have the Atreides on top of the stairs and thousands of Harkonnen are coming up the stairs, and you get the gist that the Harkonnen are not going to win against these much smaller number of Atreides.
Yep.
And then the Sardaukar just airdrop from the background, and they finish the fight in about 4 seconds flat.
I like the Sardaukar silently floating to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they don't explain it ever. It's just like, no, they are these silent professional killers. They're just gonna float down to the ground and then they're gonna murder all of you. We don't need to explain it. It's just cool.
Yeah, and it is. We do get the Dr. Yui and the tooth scene, which we talked about earlier. That's fine.
Very also very happy to see that there's a level of restraint in this movie that they don't show him with his hands in Leto's mouth with
in
the
the
tooth.
mouth.
I feel like a lot of movies would be like, here's the gross out scene with the teeth. Here we go. But they didn't. You believe that this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, I think because he's explaining the whole situation, and like you said, he sells it so well in that sequence.
Yeah.
The escape scene, like you said, with Duncan running away from the las beam, which it hasn't even explained what the las beam is yet.
Yep.
Also, the las gun, and I find it hilarious that they're firing a las gun at an ornithopter with a shield, knowing what we know happens when a las gun touches a shield.
Right.
But
they
it
maybe
looks
don't know real cool.
Yes,
watching it carve up this city.
It's one of those things as well, and we get it again in a sequence in a little bit. But showing the las gun as just this single beam of light, it's not big, it's not bright, it's not aggressive.
Yeah,
it just destroys everything.
Cutting buildings in half. Like these buildings that have 3 foot wide walls. Like it's carving them.
He's really good.
Yeah,
so it's fantastic representation of that. Let's see. I meant to mention here as well. I love the destruction, whatever ship the Harkonnens have in the air, and it like opens the bottom, and then it just fires out hundreds of rockets, and then just goes and comes out like a mech
anime business. Yep, it's really good.
It's a fantastic shot. Paul and Jessica on the ornithopter with the deaf guy. Decent sequence. I don't think it's fun. It's not as the book portrays, and that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a hard scene
like
to shoot,
the fact
probably.
that yes, and I do like the fact that the actor who is playing the deaf Harkonnen is a deaf actor, which is fantastic. Good.
That's good.
And yeah, the moment where he struggles with the voice too, and you can hear the difference in this scene really because it's right next to each other. But you hear him try and nail it, and then he fails, then he nails it. I do like the fact he gets punched in the mouth the first time. He's like, shut up.
Yep.
And then this is the second time he nails it, and then when she starts using it, she's just immediately
switching.
Jessica
on and
can look
off.
after herself.
Yeah.
As well. Like she gets the dude to kill himself, then she kills somebody else, and then kicks another dude off the ship. It's a really great sequence.
Yeah.
When they run up to like the ornithopter lands
and gets disabled.
Try and get it started again. It gets disabled, and then they run up the dune, and then you see the shot of Arakeen as it's getting totally destroyed.
So good.
Again, visually, he's such a good director.
And I think it sells it in a way that in the book, maybe you don't get the full picture. Like once they escape Arakeen, it's basically like we can't go back there. Like there's nothing for us there. Arakeen has fallen. We gotta go. But I think you never get the picture that no, it's destroyed for real. Like they're not just going in and killing everybody; they're destroying it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And why not we get naked to Oscar Isaac?
Yeah, I'll take it.
What did you think of this whole sequence?
I liked a lot of it. I like that it would be hard to the thing I'm sorry. The thing that I liked about this part in the book is the confusion for Leto about like he's waking up and he doesn't remember like why is his tooth hurt? What was I supposed to do? I like that there's none of that in this movie. He's just boneless, and I think that works a little bit better. Of like I'm not going to be able to fight. I really just need to bide my time until I get the perfect opportunity to do this. I like that, of course, the Baron Harkonnen betrays Dr. Yui. Of course, he's like, well, then join her. And him floating over the table and you can't quite see it, I think is a really
he's in the background.
Yeah,
it's a really good thing. When he starts rising up in the background, he's completely out of focus. All you're seeing is him going into the air. Is again fantastic, like shot composition.
Yeah, it's really good. Of just like you don't need to see this because it's probably pretty horrible, but you're getting a good idea. And I like him being right next to Leto and just gloating for a minute, and then Leto mumbles something, and he's like, "Wait, what did you say?" And as he starts leaning in, or before he does, he just taps his ring to just be like
to activate his shield.
Yeah, like he's not that dumb. It's not as dramatic as the book version, where it's like, oh man, did he inhale enough of this before he got his shield up? But I think I like the effect of the poison
gas.
And it killing everybody immediately.
Yeah, I also like the fact that they throw out a quick book reference with Leto's last words being "Here I am, here I remain," which is what he says when he lands on Arrakis in the books, not his dying words, which is
really good.
It's also weirdly appropriate considering this is literally where he's going to die.
Right. Yeah. And you still get that good, like, did he succeed, did he not, because they closed the doors to keep the poison in, and then you don't see them open the doors back up for a little bit. So you get that tension that I think was present in the book.
And at this point, I think we get to the tent scene where they're trying to... They have a lot, but they don't have their still suits. Whatever. They get their still suits earlier than this in the book, but whatever. Duncan brings them. Sure. Why not?
Yep.
This is, again, the visual representation of the spice in the tent when he's got the light on, and it's literally the tent is full of it.
Yeah.
And he starts having his visions again. And this is where we get the big vision. The holy war, the jihad vision, however you want to phrase it.
Right.
It hit the legions of Fremen conquering planets with the Atreides flag. One of them on Caladan, it looks like.
My father's skull, which is really... There's two lines that I think are really interesting in the book, and that's one of them. And the other one is there's the one chapter in the book from Leto's perspective where he keeps repeating they almost took the life of my son. What's that line he keeps repeating?
They tried to take the life of my son.
Yeah, he says that once in the movie at like the
delivery is great.
Point. And I was like,
perfect. Thufia,
yeah, it's like perfect. You delivered it once perfectly. I don't think you have to say it again. Same with, I think this scene, like the pain box scene, has to be really tough to direct an actor through because they have to balance the line of being freaked out that they're having these visions, but it can't be cheesy because like a holy war in my name, like my father's skull, like
he sells the panic really well. He's a teenager,
And on paper, I think those lines are a little cheesy. I don't think they're bad, but I think they tend to be a little bit cheesy. But I think between this the film showing the visions he's seeing combined with Chalamet doing a really great acting job, I think
he's
actually
right against the wall of the tent, like he's
like trying to
huddling
get
into
out.
himself.
Yeah, like it's. I think he does a really good job. I think they do a really good job of selling a scene that, but probably from anybody else would have been really cheesy. Of like, oh, holy war in my name, blah blah blah. This is on Twitter in 2 minutes because it's real bad. You know, it's they do a really good job. It's very impressive.
I think this is also the scene where we see the Fremen battling with the Sardaukar and him with his mechanical mask, which I don't like.
His like gold armor with the mask.
Yes. Which the implications of that are great. I just don't like the armor aspect of it.
The design doesn't match the rest of the movie. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit.
Because the Fremen fight as they. Yeah, the Fremen fight as they dress. Like they are always ready for battle. Like that's the kind of the whole point of them is they are warriors.
Right.
I will say this is the scene where Jessica tries to comfort him, and he yells, "Get off of me!" And he uses the voice, and the delivery on that line is chef's kiss perfect. Because it's the voice,
right?
And it's not, and it's his delivery of it. It's not overlaid with anybody else. It's him fully using the voice.
And he switches it off immediately. Like he doesn't get stuck in it, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And we get them in the tent, and then the sand compactor scene. Love that. Love the fact that they show how it works on the floor of the tent, where it shows just the sand in the air around it,
like making a bowl around it.
Yes, and then it's like, well, that's how he's going to get out from the tent because they're clearly being like blown in by the wind and the sand. And then as he sticks his head out the sand, what do we get? It's a little Muad'Dib.
I really love it. You seeing the survival mechanisms for it with the water running down its ears and it brushing that into its mouth. Like it's all these. The reinforcement of all of the stuff that has survived on this planet has survived for a reason and has adapted, just like the Fremen. Like it's all kind of reinforcing all of this stuff.
It's one of the things I love in the book, and I think it's Jessica who notices it first. It's not about water; it's about moisture. Take the big and turn it into something small, and that's how important it is. It's not water. It's moisture.
Yeah.
Like that's
the difference matters. Right.
And like seeing little Muad'Dib, and I don't think it's mentioned in the book how Muad'Dib gets water, just that he's a morning and an evening, like a sunrise sunset animal. And it makes perfect sense. If it's sunrise and sunset, then the dew is going to be there, and then the dew is going to potentially run down his ear, and then it's a really good little extrapolation of how this little mouse might survive. But yeah, they get rescued by Kynes. I'm just going to say Liet from now on, because they get taken to one of the old research stations that were discontinued. As you talked about, this is when they're walking
the
through
and they research station.
They see like the gardens and everything that's inside, and the Fremen are very subservient to Kynes, and they refer to Kynes as Liet, which Paul clicks at one point.
Yeah, Paul immediately is like,
who are you to the Fremen? Is one of the questions that get asked.
Yep.
Fremen make some coffee, then they kill a bunch of Sardaukar.
Yep.
Because the Sardaukar think they're sneaky. It turns out Fremen are much sneakier.
Yep.
And Duncan dies.
Yeah. It's like, I like that he gets like 2 death scenes back to back in this of just like, oh, you got me, blah, oh, it turned red, blah. Never mind, I'm back to life.
And he wipes out like 20 Sardaukar as well.
Yeah. He's for real. Like, he's not just the best fighter of the Atreides because he's handsome.
He might be one of the best, period.
Right. Like, he's legitimately very good, and his sacrifice did buy both Kynes and Paul and Jessica the time they needed to escape. even though
Well,
they had to
he
dodge
stopped a
that super
lesbian.
cool laser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The salute as well
Yes.
is really it's
Yep.
really cool. I like the salute.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they get they get still suits from Kynes. Kynes goes one way, they go a different way. They're going to a Thopter. And I like the fact that I think they ask what Kynes is going to do if they're taking the Thopter out. It's like, oh, the desert is my home or something
I
like that. And it's just
love
like,
that
yeah, it
line and that
is.
delivery.
Yeah, it
The
is.
desert's my home. Like, what do you think I'm gonna
Hmm.
do? I'm gonna walk across the desert.
Um, and poor Kynes gets got. I like this death scene a lot more than the death scene in the book.
Yes,
The
I
fact that in the book, Kynes is stripped of the still suit and then left to die in the desert, which
and
they think the
hallucinating
Sardaukar think is
about
irony.
Kyne's dad
Yes,
and the study. I
yes.
I like the death scene in the book because it's weird, but I like this one a lot because I think it's interesting that the Sardaukar is
It
like,
does the tease. It does the
yeah,
tease as well, where Liet places a thumper and then stands on a ridge and whips out those barbs.
mm-hmm,
And if you don't know, you don't know. If
mm-hmm,
you do know, you're just like, hell yeah,
mm-hmm.
let's get some.
But I like too when Kynes gets stabbed, water comes out first.
Yes, the squirt of water off the chest is a
Yeah,
really nice
that
touch.
that was a cool touch. Where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, all right, that is a still suit. And then just the line of like, "You've betrayed the Emperor," and she's like, "Man, come on, for real?" Like, but then just the rhythmic thumping with her hand in the sand, even as she's continuing to sink,
Hmm.
really great. Like, because you know, even if you don't know anything about Dune, by that point, you know it's gonna happen. Like you
Yeah,
know
I
what
mean,
she's
you've already
doing.
seen the sand plume coming in that
Yep.
direction as well,
And the
so
noise the
you know
thumper
exactly
makes,
what's coming.
so good.
Again, yeah, audio design in this the
Mm-hmm.
hollow thump it does is like
Yep.
thump,
Yep.
thump.
And
It's just
as soon as it hits that second time and it's perfectly rhythmic, you're just like, all right, that's what it does.
mhm.
If you couldn't figure it out by name, there it is.
Yep, it thumps. Who would have
Yeah.
thought? We get the Thopter and the Storm escape sequence. My second favorite sandstorm sequence in movies, I
Mm-hmm.
might argue, is this one, where they avoid the missiles and they go into the storm,
Yep.
and then they do the whole litany against fear and just turn everything off and let the sandstorm have its way with the Thopter.
Mm-hmm. Very,
Decent
very.
sequence.
It's a very cool moment to see both of them kind of accept being pulled into and around the storm after he shuts it off. Like,
Hmm.
Jessica doesn't fight it. She's just like, oh, okay, he knows what he's doing at this point. Like, there's a level of trust there that I think
Yeah.
um, is interesting at this point.
And I like the fact that you don't know how much time has passed, because by the
Yeah.
time it cuts back to them, they've got the masks up.
Yep.
It's very well shot as well, because it's super full of sand. It's very orange orange and yellow inside of the Thopter.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know how much time has passed, but it looks like they're sleeping when it goes back to them. Like, how
Yep.
long have they been in this storm?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we back to Gady Prime for the quick. Raban is talking to the Baron in his extremely gross oil bath.
The I like that this scene ends with just a close-up shot of that stuff.
The bubbles.
It's
Yeah.
just like this cool thing of just like, look at this cool thing we made. I'm gonna show it to you again. Look at this cool like
Hmm.
black and yellow inky tar like gunk he's in. I'm
Yeah.
gonna show it to you one more time. It's just really cool, and seeing him ascend
Come
like
out of it.
out of
Yeah.
it and just be covered in this stuff is just, oh, it's so good. And
And
seeing
him telling Raban to squeeze is a
one of
squeeze.
one
The
of my favorite
delivery.
lines from the book, and I'm glad they delivered it well here. And seeing Batista struggling, Batista as Raban in that scene, struggling with like, this is gross. I'm getting what I wanted. Ooh, maybe is it not what I wanted? I'm not entirely sure. Like him fighting a little bit with that in the scene is really good. He doesn't like we said, he doesn't get a lot in this movie, but he
Mm,
makes it though.
yeah, it's really good. And again, the Baron explains in this sequence as well. This was expensive. You don't know how expensive.
Right.
Squeeze. Get
Yeah.
me money
I
now.
need that
I need
spice.
money.
Yeah.
Like, you get it now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And cuts from there to them escaping the storm. And this sequence is good. I think it's well done. I like the fact that the wings snap,
Yes.
various fail and then snap at various points.
Yeah, I like
Turns it
that.
into a glider. At no point does the camera go far out and show you them coming in. It's all right inside the thopter.
Yeah.
You never know which way is up. You never know which way is down. There's one shot, like there's one or two shots where it's outside the thopter in like a third person view, as it shows the wings fail and then snap.
Yeah.
But pretty much everything is inside. So you're on the same ride as they are, where it's just like, oh look, the hair's going up, so they must be upside down.
Right.
Which way
That's a
is it
cool
going?
shot.
And
Yeah.
and I like the fact that when it snaps when they're gliding in and the one snaps, you can see Paul start to counter turn for the rotation of the
Yep.
thopter to try
Like
and keep it
immediately.
in a loop. Like, so
Yeah.
it's not going to go spiraling out of control, but he's trying to keep it under as much control as he can, which I think is a nice little touch. And then, yeah, they crash land and they they run to some rocks and get still suit ready because they have
Yep.
their still suits now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Visions of a friend is my next note,
Yeah.
which is when we start Paul's visions of Jamis.
Right. Which is
So I find this sequence confused a lot of people when they saw the movie if they haven't read the books. I
Right.
understand why. I can't really talk about it in this venue without talking about the second part of the books.
right.
So
That's our next episode.
I'm not going to talk about this section right now. I will
Yeah.
try and remember the Jamis as a friend talk
Right.
for part 2.
It's very, I think it's very interesting because it's a good scene and it's acted really well, and I like that it's confusing because it's a lot of like Paul is living out of time at the moment because he's
starting
struggling
to see the future.
Yeah, and he's like, he doesn't know who this is, but it's clearly somebody important that they're friends with, but we don't know how far away it is. Is it 5 minutes away?
Mhm.
Is it 5 years away? And why isn't Paul here right now? Why is he getting pulled in 5 different blurry directions? Like, I think it's a cool scene for just you as the viewer being as disoriented as Paul is.
I think it's I don't know if I don't know if we've come across it in the book so far, but there is a line that Paul delivers in the books, and I don't think enough emphasis is put on it
Mm-hmm.
when he talks about how, in order to know how to be nice, you need to know what supreme cruelty is, and what people, I think a lot of people when they think, oh, he can see the future, that's great. It's like, no, he can see every variation of the future, so he can see what every path a decision will lead him to.
Yeah.
So he mentions when he talks to Jessica in the book about how Jessica is the Harkonnen's daughter.
Right.
He mentions that one of his visions, he has stood inside of the Bene Gesserit Hall of Records, and he has seen the notation that labels Jessica as directly related to Baron Harkonnen by birth.
Right.
What I don't think ever gets emphasized enough is that's one future line that he has seen, which is now a memory in his head. Like, think about how many different variations of seeing into the future.
Right. How many hundreds of millions of branches.
And then they all become memories that you have because you're seeing into the future. That is a lot for one mind to take in. And like, it's understandable that he gets confused and angry, and it's confusing because it's got to be confusing for someone to process that amount of information all in a short period of time as well.
Right. Right.
And Paul is still a villain, by the way, in my eyes, but we'll get there.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah, they sandwalk through the night.
Yep.
They see the worm. I love the shot of them sitting on the dunes taking a break, and then you see the worm in the distance just going across.
It's really cool.
Like, again, this section of the book is probably your least favorite section of the book. I like the fact that they do it pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
But also they do slow down. They stop. They show them taking breaks. They show the visuals, like they're moving in the night as they would have to.
Well, and
They
it's
show that
nice.
worm going across.
It's nice to show them, have them show the sandworm as not a villain. It's just an animal that's living on this planet. Like it's doing what it does, and right now it's just kind of moving around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as they go, they run into drum sand,
Right.
which I like the fact that they introduced drum sand like this way, which
Mm-hmm.
is like, oh no, we're in trouble now. It's
Yep.
time to sprint as fast as we can for this rock because now there's a worm following and chasing us.
Yeah. I
So tell me about this sequence, Boston. You walk me through it.
I I this is probably, you're right, this is probably the least favorite part of the book. It's also my least favorite part of the movie, so this is the one where I was sort of not watching as closely as the rest of the movie. Um but the end of this is probably the thing that has stuck with me the most in this movie, of just
They
that
get to the rocks just in time.
yeah, and having that worm like just being up in front of them, looming over them, is still such an incredible shot.
Uh-huh. And that was in the trailer, which sucks.
Right. I'm yeah,
Like,
one of those things where it's like, I get you probably have to show something about the sandworm, but maybe not like all of it.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like the worst part is in the trailer they showed the harvester incident. I was like, cool, that's it. Don't show anything else. Just
Right.
leave it as that.
You're good there.
And then they showed this sequence at the end of the trailer. And it's
Mm.
like, come on. That's how I knew where this movie was going to end, because they showed this.
Oh,
And
sure.
I was like, okay, so the movie's going to end right after they bump into Stilgar and Co., which they will do
Right.
in a couple of seconds.
Right.
What do you think of the design of the worm as it comes out the sand and is standing up in front of them, essentially?
I think it looks incredible. I think they nailed it. I like we were talking about just a little bit ago, it has to be incredibly hard to figure out how to make that thing look cool, but also kind of look natural, like a thing that could exist. I think they nailed it. Like, especially just that terrifying gaping maw with millions of teeth, like that has the opportunity to look so dumb, and I think they nailed it.
Yeah. And the scale is immense too. Like, I think in the
Yeah.
books it's like up to 450 meters long
Yeah.
is the length that has been observed. And
Right.
it's like that's a big thing. Like, you don't
that's
understand how
massive.
big that is.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Like,
This whole scene
sequence
is really great. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they make it to the rocks. They go further into the rocks, and hey, it's still Garuko.
What's up? It's us, guys. The Fremen. Hi. Chani hates you.
This scene is a little undercut for my liking. It's a little too short. There should be a lot more negotiation between Jessica and Stilgar. It's like 2 lines.
Yeah,
like
I
they
do
get.
appreciate that they cut out the stuff I didn't like in the book, where Stilgar is preventing Jessica from speaking. I get why they did that in the book, and I think it's okay in the book, but
Hey, that's the fight. That's not this section.
Well, I know, but
I'm
like,
talking about them. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk about it before I forget, because I'm gonna forget. But like, I like that. That's one thing they did change in this, is the tension between Stilgar and Jessica is a lot less. Jessica isn't Stilgar's focus. Like, that's his focus is Paul and the whole thing that's going on now. It's a lot less of like the weirding way, and you didn't tell me you were a witch. Ha, 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 ha. You know, like, that's just sort of like, oh, okay, you're fine. You can come with us.
Yeah, I'm a little bit sad that, again, the capture scene, I think, could have been done with a little bit of expansion.
Probably. Yeah.
But again, they have to cut somewhere. Like, there's a lot that needs to get cut, and so we might as well jump to it. Then we get Jamis. They're trying to make the crossing to CH to Boar before it becomes nighttime, or before.
Oh, we do
daytime.
see that cool pistol though.
The Mauler pistol, yes.
Yeah, that's a cool weapon.
Yes, but because Jamis invokes the Omtal, that means they can't go to CH Tabor instead.
Right, everybody's
they have
like,
to deal with the situation now.
You got to do it right now. He's always like starting a fight.
And so we get a fight.
Yep.
What did you think of the fight? Oh,
I
we
love
talked already about Chani giving him the Chris knife and
right.
Honor to
It's
Die
a
holding it, so
really
on and so
great
forth.
scene. I
It is, I will say, just before you go, I did note there is no music in this entire sequence. Just
no
like you said,
for
making the
like
most of
20
silence.
minutes. Like yeah. I do really like during this fight when Paul first says, "Do you yield?" and everybody's like like everybody clutches the pearls. Like I think that's a really good reaction and just him saying like, "Ah, he doesn't know the ways." Is he toying?
Death
Is he
is the
toying
judge
with
of it.
them? Yeah,
He
like
he makes it look so easy. Like I
yeah,
like the fact that like the guy who plays Jamis sells this as he is a very good fighter, and he is very very irritated by the fact that he keeps getting got. If it was
right,
anybody else, he would have been dead like 6 times over. But the fact that it's Paul and he's hesitating all of the time, like
right.
he
He's
has
like
him
not
at
fighting
knife's
all the
edge like
way.
4 times,
Yeah,
and he doesn't kill him, and that just annoys Jamis. Like Jamis
yeah,
starts yelling and getting frustrated with the whole situation.
yeah,
And I think it sells how well trained Paul is because he
yeah.
handles him with ease.
Right. It's like Paul doesn't even realize it really, which I think the scene actually does sell it pretty well because part of the book is he's doing the slow attacks so he can pierce through the shield because that's what he's used to, but it's
Yeah, he's
hard
shield fighting.
yeah, like it's hard to sell that in the movie, and I like
Mhm.
they've turned it into getting him to the point
Hesitation.
where he can yield because he's trying not to kill his first person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I do like the again. It's silent throughout. I think the fight is really good throughout. Jamis's
Hmm.
performance is incredible. Like his frustration. We haven't talked about the eyes because we
Yeah, the
forgot to mention
Fremen.
the eyes of the Abad.
Right.
I think they're really well done. No
I think so
contacts,
too.
like really well. Apparently, they were gonna get special contacts done, but then they realized they were going to be filming in the desert, so it's going to be a literal nightmare to try and
Yeah,
maintain.
good
So
call.
they just did them in CG, which
I
I
think
think
it
it's fine. It
works.
sells pretty well.
Yeah.
Like they shine at the right moments. They're darker at the
Yeah.
right moments. I think it really does work fantastically well. And the whole fight leads up to that moment. And like you said, like I said, it was silent throughout. Then the
Yep.
second the killing blow strikes, the vocals kick in,
Yep.
like that desperate vocals, the oppressive vocals, they
Hmm.
start to kick in, and you get the whole Paul must die so the Kwisatz Haderach may live kind of
Yep.
thing,
Yep.
like looping into
The
the soundtrack.
fulfillment of that. Yeah.
Yes. And then yeah, so then it cuts to them carrying a body across the desert,
Hmm.
and as they
I
go, you get the tease.
I also love that little like even their technology for carrying the body looks like it's watertight. Like it's a little thing of we're not losing a drop of this. Like we're taking it to where we
Hmm.
need it to go. Which was a bigger part in the book, but I like there's a little part of
Yes.
here of just like we're not losing any of this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's really, really well done.
Yep.
And yeah, you get the tease in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
If you've played any of the Dune video games, you know this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you get the Fremen in the distance riding a worm across,
Right.
which is a really nice reveal of how, hey, by the way, this happens.
Right.
And then it
How do you
cuts
think we're
to
survived?
Chani.
It's this.
Yeah, it cuts to Chani, and Chani's like, no, don't you worry. This is just the beginning. Cut to
Mm-hmm.
credits.
Right. Yeah. It ends at pretty much the point you would want it to end, I think, because you can tell it's very much like, okay, now we're starting the next big part of the plot. So this is
Uh-huh.
where we're gonna wrap it up. I This movie's really great. I
Yep.
watching the whole thing. I don't. We've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it until we're done doing this show. I don't go into something looking for problems or looking for things to hate or expecting to hate something or whatever. I didn't find anything to dislike in this movie. I think I'm incredibly astounded that it happened and that it's good and that it is still representative of the part of the book that we have read, which
Yep.
seems like a triumph in and of itself, of just like,
Mm-hmm.
I put this thing on film, I've made a Dune thing, and it's good. Here we go. We've done it.
I think it took 14 days for them to approve the sequel once this got released. So
Right. Yeah, it was a
like, the
budget of
sequel hadn't even been
130
approved.
something, and it made 400 million back.
And
so,
which
like,
is impressive when you consider it literally came out on it came out in movies and it came out on HBO Max at the exact same time. They
right.
dual released this.
Yep.
Right at the end, quote unquote, of the COVID pandemic.
Right.
Like, this was one of the few movies that, like, literally they're like, okay, the pandemic's over, wink.
Right.
Go back to
But
the
we're also
theater.
putting it on HBO Max.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to be safe.
I just everything about it, the casting, the sound design, especially the music, the architecture, the how the sandworm looks, like all of it I think was done incredibly well. And I tried to view this movie as someone who's read as much of the book as I have read, while trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who is maybe watching this without reading the book. And I think it works really well for both, as kind of like,
Yes.
you know, the book stuff will fill in the gaps that maybe the movie is understandably missing. But if you want all these questions answered, go read the book. If you haven't read the book yet.
And to be honest, I think watching this first before you read any of the books, if you watch the movie before you do any of that, I think this movie will help you break that first, like, 5 or 6 chapters of the book where it is a lore dump.
Yep.
Like, I think if you have the visualization from the movie of all of that stuff already, I think that will help you transition a lot more smoothly into the books.
Yeah, I agree.
Because that's the thing that people struggle with the books. It's like those first 5-6 chapters are nightmarish.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it's great. But those first sections are rough. And I think having this to ease you in, because you go in with a baseline knowledge of who the Harkonnens are, who the Atreides are, who the Bene Gesserit are.
Right.
You have a feather touch on each of them before you go into the wading into the books kind of thing.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, I agree. I thought this was great. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. I loved it. Just super good. It looks incredible.
Yeah.
It
visually it astonished me when I saw it in the theater, because I was like, I hope this is good. Right. I genuinely went in thinking, because it's one of those things. It's Dune. Like, you go in and you think, well, this is the unfilmable thing. Like, nobody can do this.
The impossible dream.
And then I went in. Yeah, I went in and I was amazed by how good it was. How respectfully it treated what it did and did not cover from the books too. Because there was a lot in the books that it could have covered and it didn't. Again, like I said, the biggest thing missing from me, like, the mentats is whatever. It's like, okay, you don't need to talk about the Butler. You don't need to talk about the Butlerian Jihad. You don't need to explain what mentats are. You don't need to explain that these people are physically, mentally so much stronger than we are where we are, because it's literally 10,000 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Evolution has stepped up a notch, one might say. You don't need all of that. The dinner scene, the dinner scene, I would have loved to have seen, because that I think when you get to that scene in the book, that's when you know you're in, when you make it through that scene.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen that, just for the way each of the actors would have portrayed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like an angry Leto, a cocky Paul, all of the people around the table. Another scene for Kynes to appear in, who would have showed up there. You would have got the smugglers who were introduced at that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot in that scene that I would have loved to have seen in the movie, but at the same time, I get it. I know why it was cut.
Right. Yeah. Man. Excuse me. A little sand in my throat. Let me talk about our ratings here real quick before we get on with this 5-star runtime. Rotten Tomatoes has this at an 83% tomato meter with 509 reviews, which is really good, and a 90% audience score with 5,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes has this at a 3.9 out of 5, but, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, a lot of haters on there for big movies, so that's not too surprising. And IMDb has this an 8.0 out of 10 with 750,000 reviewers. So that's very well received on a kind of a macro scale. So
I'm with you. For me, this is a 9 out of 10. It's easily up there for me. Like,
yeah, it's so
I don't
good.
know. It is. It genuinely is.
I really don't have anything bad to say about it.
I will be honest. Like, it is hilarious because I've done this. I've gone through and looked at the negative reviews on like IMDb for this, and some of these are like an hour of backstory that made no sense.
Yep, right.
Okay, I get it. It's based on a book. You do know that, right? You know, it's
right.
There's more to this than you get.
Also, just take the ride. Like, just go into a movie and take the ride. Like, you don't have to. Not everything has to be explained to you within like an inch of its life. Just go see a movie. Relax about it. Like, you don't need someone to be like, well, the power system for the shields is this. Shut up. Doesn't matter. They look cool. If they're red, you're dead. It rhymes. Get out of here.
Yep.
You jerks.
I love this. I love this movie. And there's a reason I literally, as soon as we were doing this season, I was like, I'm not watching this streaming. I'm buying this physical. Because it needs to go on my shelf.
Yep.
Like, literally right next to me is Dune, Dune, and Dune. So
got the whole family there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things. I love it. I'm biased. You might, if you're listening to this, you might love it. You might not. It's up to you.
Yeah. Well, after 2.5 hours, the same runtime of the movie itself, which is, I'll take it. Thank you.
Next one is 3 and change. 2, just under 2, by the way.
Yeah, it's like 160 something minutes. I just looked, so we'll be catching that here at some point. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Our next episode will be the second part of the first Dune book. We'll talk about that in that episode.
Read it to the end, folks.
That's right. Going to the end. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.